And then I love the piano and orchestration in this song. And that this is the Summer of '68. That was the song that made me have the thought of like, this era probably has the potential to be my favorite band. And I think one of my favorite bands, I think a big part of it is the piano playing and having that color featured so predominantly in there.
Yeah.
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 It really highlights what a fantastic player he is.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I have a whole life. I feel like I have the rest of my life because that's what's going to take to understand the genius of Richard Wright and Nick Mason.
They both are really understated. Like they really genuinely are.
Yeah, I mean, you've got two other dudes like Waters and Gilmore in the band. Like, you're going to get overshadowed. It's kind of just a fact of life, unfortunately.
I mean, I bet those paychecks helped, but still.
Sure, sure, yeah.
But still, like you can't fake that artistry that those two dudes had, and then on I guess on their later material how they come in perfect. Because I mean, like that was the thing that was on that middle era of Pink Floyd. It was like I sort of had this idea that I thought that at that time they might have been on their fifth drummer. And they finally got a guy that would just calm the fuck down and do what they told him to do. And that maybe that like they had a keyboard player live, but really David or Roger did it.
Right. It was just like studio guys they got, or touring rather.
That's really
probably
what I thought.
It was like Steely Dan.
Exactly.
That's exactly
that was the
what I thought it was
comparison
like.
you made, yeah.
Yeah.
And so to like find out that it's like, no, man, they have their own Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr.
Exactly. It is. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Except Bono didn't play bass.
Thank God.
Thank God. The less Bono does, the better. I'm
Yeah.
just going to...
Keep him humble. Keep him humble.
Episode 26, recorded April 20th, 2022.
Now he's right.
Okay. You know what you're doing.
I cut myself somehow. I don't know how that happened.
All right.
It happens all the time.
Let's decide what beer I'm going to drink. Do we need to drink these out of a glass? Do I need to go get glasses?
You can do whatever the fuck you want.
This is my podcast.
I do have a bottle opener if you need one.
All right. Okay. So.
And it is a Pussifer bottle opener.
Is it really?
Yeah. Bought it in Jerome.
I think I'm going to do the coffee one.
Sick.
Oh, which you don't need the bottle opener for.
You haven't seen
I'll
me
put
drink.
that over here with my Topo Chicos.
You don't know how I drink out of a can.
Is Pussifer branded?
Yeah. It's kind of wearing off, but
Okay.
it has
Oh my god, it's so cold.
the Queen Bee.
Shit.
And it had.
Where
the
was
name.
this? Your refrigerator?
Down here in my little ice
Oh,
pack with my
okay.
Topo Chicos. And I have a special drink when we get to a certain part in the podcast. It's like a victory drink.
Oh.
So.
Oh god, wait.
Since
It's like modular. How the hell?
It's yeah. No. Here, it's
Okay.
it's
other
really
way, other way.
convoluted.
I see.
Like that.
Gotcha.
Oh my goodness.
I love
You
I'm having a moment here with this.
is it good?
it. Yeah.
With this. Was it
French press?
Imperial Coffee Porter, St. Arnold?
Nice.
I haven't had beer in a while. I've just been drinking like whiskey drinks.
I know.
You know, I think part of my
Vodka drink.
recognition of the fact that I needed to not drink was that whole like during the Christmas season, I called it my bad vent. And every single day I drank a completely uniquely different beer and did like this whole rating of it. And,
Oh man.
and then I just started gathering more. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this whole website thing where I just do this. And at first it was going to be like some sort of 365 days of beer.com
Oh
or
my
something
God.
like that. But then it,
That's too many days of beer.
and then it was like, oh, maybe there really is a problem here.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Like, I love that idea, and I would be in, but I would also probably be dead. I feel
Yeah.
like.
I gained so much weight during the month of December.
That's funny. Yeah, that I've been sort of understanding the same sort of aspects of myself when it comes to sort of like binge eating and whatnot, and understanding that I have almost a sort of like subconscious bias that's going to push me towards activities that will or diets or regimens or whatever that will allow me to justify binge eating.
Gotcha.
You know, like, oh well, I'm only gonna eat these certain foods during this certain time, but then once a week I'll eat whatever I want, and that probably works really well for people who are a little more moderate.
Yeah.
You know, but if I eat whatever I want, then that's gonna be like 2 dozen donut holes and a whole pizza, and you know what I mean, and all that. Like or I would you know, I was into doing like lots of really extreme exercise or extreme cardio, like 6-mile runs and shit like that.
So then you're like, it just goes away.
Right, and I'm
It's
like,
okay.
whoa,
It
man.
balances out.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. Well, I just did this run, so now I can do whatever I want.
Now I can eat a
Right.
cake.
And so,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, like seriously. And I ran, like right when the pandemic started, I ran so much. I was running like 20 miles a week. But Allison also started baking.
Those go well together.
Just canceled each other out,
Yeah.
you know? And
Just the seesaw was completely level.
completely
at that
level.
point.
Right. And so now I'm sort of, you know, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to run a little bit. And then I'm not going to eat like that's not going to give me permission to eat like a madman
Right.
afterwards, you know?
You know, I think the difficulty for me, it would be easy to just not drink. I mean, I say that. I stopped drinking because I would start at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whenever work wrapped up that day, and I would just not stop until I went to bed. And
Oh, you know, I'm a weekend drinker, start on Saturday and on Friday.
right, yeah. But for me at least, once I realized that I had a dysfunctional relationship with alcohol, then it was suddenly, okay, well, if I'm going to correct my relationship to it, it's more than about abstinence. It's about trying to figure out how to have a functional relationship.
Right. Figure out where that disconnect is and how you can.
And then you
Make it
realize
work.
how many things you have a dysfunctional relationship with. And it's not just alcohol, it's eating and exercise and body image and all these other things that are.
Well, but you went through a period where you lost an insane amount of weight though.
Over the last 6 years, I've lost 100 pounds.
But a lot of that was like really fast.
The first 80 pounds was in about a 4 or 5 month span,
Wow.
Yeah,
just from not
That's amazing.
eating shit.
it was
Right.
amazing. Like
Yeah.
it was startling. How quickly Shae just became a different like, oh,
Right.
this is a
You
new
know how
person.
I finally lost the final 20 pounds of that? I stopped drinking. That's what did it.
That would do it.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. But
You were saying something about like also so all the other things you have an unhealthy relationship
oh
with.
yeah, and it was a really, it's still something that I'm processing to realize that, you know, I actually have body image issues.
Yeah. A lot of it really goes back to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's why
so
they-
then trying to balance getting healthier and getting fit, working with a personal trainer, but not allowing that to feed into my, you know, like resident shit that goes off in my head.
Right.
Cause I'm always like, okay, I'm like, my trainer even said, stop, you know, weighing yourself every day. Just weigh yourself once a week.
Yeah.
So
That tracks for me. I mean, the first 26 episodes of this, I was wearing a hoodie because I have insane body image issues. Even when we started it, I gained 30 because my mom died like after we recorded the first episode,
Right.
and not necessarily the stress of her death, but the stress of all of the ongoing processes and things that had to happen for months and months and months on end after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I gained like 35 pounds, you know? So, but even, you know, even on that first, even when it started, I was like, I have to lose 35 pounds, you know, because so it's like, even when I was lighter, I still felt like I was just a terrible, you know, just sloth, sluggish piece of shit, you know, even though I was running 6 miles and
Right.
all this sort of stuff. I was like, oh God, I don't even deserve to live because I can't see my abs, or some dumb shit. Like I should be barely allowed to exist, you know? And these are of course like not rational thoughts.
Sure. But they're thoughts that you have, and it's like those are the 3 a.m. thoughts. When you're all alone and it's dark and it's just you and your ceiling.
Yeah.
That's the shit that goes through your head.
Well, and like you're saying, like the thing, that's so funny that what you said about your trainer, because I just sort of recently made that same sort of, it's like, okay, I'm going to stop weighing myself every day, and I'm just going to like weigh like once a week or something. And, you know, because I like it, if I was trying really, really hard and the scale didn't move, or the scale moved the wrong direction, I'd lose the day.
Yeah.
I'd get so depressed, so upset, that I'd lose the whole day, basically.
You know, it's funny because I'm so resistant to programs and
regimens.
Yeah. And especially kind of going back to our conversation last week, you know, because I was a pastor at one time in my life, I'm extremely resistant to language that feels associated with that. Because the world is a much bigger place than just that box. But so consequently, I have a real hard time with language of like AA and programs like that. And yet the thing that really like flipped a switch in my head was listening to something that Russell Brand said.
Oh no.
Of all people.
Oh no.
You know, his thing was,
well, that dude does know how to not be addicted to heroin anymore.
yes, he does.
So for anything that he has done after that, and all of the, you know, sort of like questionable bullshit and misinformation and whatever woo, like I'm gonna
Right.
tour, I'm gonna like just tour around the world looking deeply into people's eyes and parasocial bullshit that he does. He knows how to not be addicted to heroin anymore.
Exactly.
So he
Maybe-
does have a little bit of authority there.
Unless that's what got him off of it, then that's you want to avoid that route.
Well, that sounds like that's a lot of stakes to take.
But the phrase that he said, which I thought was just really powerful for me, was it's not the decision between working a program and not working a program. It's the decision between working a conscious program and an unconscious program.
Well, that sounds like bullshit to me. But what did it mean to you?
For me, it meant that so much of my life, I do run these resident programs of, you know, whether it's the binge eating or the body image issues or the drinking or anything else. And then the program, he took the whole 12-step program and put them in a completely different language. I frequently describe it as he put it in the language of fuck, which I understand. And it's like, step 1, are you fucked up? Step 2, could you not be fucked up? Step 3, are you yourself going to unfuck yourself? And he doesn't get into this overly crazy language about higher power or, you know, those kinds of things. But the way that he recontextualizes those steps, and I hate even using that phrase, but that process helps to, for me, understand that I have certain patterns of reaction to things in my life. And those patterns feed from traumas, from dysfunctions, from things like that. And a lot of it is slowing down and realizing, okay, why am I acting like this? Or why am I responding to my wife like this? Or why am I responding to my kids like this? Where does that come from? And that process, that program of understanding where those dysfunctions stem from, and then purposing to react differently is really the work. That's the work of breaking myself from those addictive patterns.
Would you consider that mindfulness?
Yes.
So if you were to say, if you were to rephrase what he says and replace the word conscious with mindful, would it mean the same thing to you?
It would.
Words are interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you come across, I assume you're coming from the direction of like consciousness being a sort of hand wavy way of saying
I know that Russell
spirituality in a way.
I know that Russell Brand uses it in that way also.
Oh, okay.
And I know
Gotcha.
that lots of people in communities that are adjacent to the community he's cultivating use it in that way.
Right.
But
That's
they
what
also use the word mindfulness, but mindfulness is just less sexy of a word.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's more pragmatic. It's like, here's a thing that you can actually do.
yeah,
Whereas talking about your being conscious and consciousness is like,
it's a little,
conscious.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, like mindful, like you can take a mindful bath. You can mindfully use the restroom. But like conscious, there's just something about that word that has a little to it,
Yeah.
And I can imagine someone hearing, it's not whether or not you decide to start a program or not, it's whether or not you decide to start a conscious program. I know the way that some people would hear that
Sure.
is do you start a program that caters to your specific bullshit?
Like raises your consciousness, or
Yeah, like it's do you start a program that is about that like vibes with your sort of particular esoteric language about what is and what isn't, and stuff
Right.
like that? Because that's what's so goofy or interesting about those communities is they really, really don't like a lot of them. So the encounters I've had, like they're very averse to the church, they're very averse to Christianity and things like that, but they still have like a church and like a God-shaped hole.
yeah. And I think for me, it's all just been about learning to be okay in the moment, whatever that moment brings, like being in the moment and not fleeing the moment. Because most of my life has been spent fleeing the moment.
Well, because it's those emotions, it's those negative it's those negative emotions that become the triggers for the bad habits.
Right.
And that was a hard thing for me to be like, okay, I don't just eat when I'm sad, I eat when I'm frustrated, I eat when I'm anxious, I eat, oh god damn it, I eat when I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's time to celebrate.
Right.
Yep.
And so and trying to sort of recognize those cues. And so I imagine it's probably similar for you with, negative emotion, reach for that drink.
Yep. I'm stressed. Time to grab the bourbon.
Yeah.
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 But I think that's the right path, is like not, you're talking about like dealing with the language of like a program or
Right.
a regimen or something like that. And I would like, that's the reason that, to me, the reason those things exist in the first place is because they work well enough for enough people,
Right.
right? They cover a large enough swath of people's problems that they're applicable to, or they're able to be applied as a regimen, right?
Yeah.
But the real problem is, like you said, like it's almost doing like root cause analysis on yourself and trying to figure out what the actual problem is. The problem isn't that you drink. The problem is, why do you feel the need to drink or overeat or whatever it is.
Right.
And maybe that isn't part of a program. And that's I've never also bought like follow this 12-step guide or follow this whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's
10
not
easy
always
ways to find the right woman.
Yeah, or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's not always applicable to everybody. Just find
Yeah.
what works for you and figure out why it works.
Yeah.
And do it. And to the best that you can,
And going back to that first breakfast with Dane,
Sounds like a movie. Breakfast with Dane.
breakfast with Dane. So
Where you shove
we
scrambled eggs into Dane Cook's face.
one of the
Chop
other
his
things
head off with a shovel.
to put more context with that conversation we had about, when he said, there's no moderation for some of us, brother. He was a lot gravelier than that when he said it.
He sounded cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a sort of a counterpoint, my wife, I think, is a picture of what that looks like. She can have a glass of wine And then she may go 2 or 3 weeks without thinking, oh, I'd like to have a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always at my suggestion. You know, I was always the one bringing it up because, you know, every day I'm looking at the clock going, can I have bourbon yet? Or tequila or gin or whatever it was. You know, is it time enough that I can kind of stop my day
Right.
and numb out? Because I don't go through 2 or 3 weeks without thinking about it. I do good to go through, you know, 12 hours.
So how many days did it take for you to get into it before you started to, I guess, feel good about it, or to start to like stop thinking about it as much, stop thinking about reaching for it as much?
So I think it was day 3 when I was slapped in the face with realizing I was actually going through physiological withdrawals.
Right. Okay. I remember. I remember you called me.
Yeah. Yeah. I really wondered if I was having a mental breakdown. Realizing that when you have alcohol so much in your system that you go through your central nervous system goes through a sort of an attenuation where it kind of numbs it. And then when you get off of it, your central nervous system starts freaking out trying to find its balance again. And there's no telling how that's going to manifest for some people. And for me, it was a really big mental struggle. Mm-hmm. Once I realized that was the point, I hated it. I hated it for what it was doing to my mental state. That doesn't mean it was easy. That doesn't mean I didn't struggle. It was probably a good 2 months in that I was still thinking, man, I really want a glass of bourbon, or I really want tequila. And occasionally I still have those moments, but they're few and far between. From what I understand, I mean, I'm only 30 days or 90 days into it almost. But from what I understand, that's probably something I'll always have every now and then, depending on the celebration or the stress level or whatever.
Should we just pour these out?
No, I'm totally fine, man.
Okay.
My wife drinks. I have other friends who drink. It doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, cool.
I was at somebody's house the other night and I started smelling weed and I was like, no, I'll just drink my Topo Chico.
I felt like such a shit the next day because after we did the last podcast, because I remembered, you know, and because he had texted me before, he's like, anything I should bring? And I'm like, just your beverage of choice.
Which I did.
Yeah.
I was drinking the hell out of Topo Chicos.
4 times over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, I don't know. All this stuff's interesting, and it's interesting sort of how you as an individual, how your perspective can change if you throw some different language at the problem.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I guess we would need to ask a linguist about this or something, but I wonder if there's something in there about how language can function as sort of how it sort of signifies belonging to a certain group, like an in-group, out-group thing.
Yeah.
And when someone uses language in a different way than you feel comfortable with, you don't want to align with that group.
Oh, yeah. I've always been resistant to the 12-step language, period. And then when Russell Brand rebranded it, it really allowed me to see the functionality of it
I appreciate
in a different light. Sorry. I didn't.
I'm not.
I appreciate it.
That was just a dad joke. It was
No,
just
no,
a
no,
cheap
no.
dad joke.
No, I'm not grimacing at the joke. The
Oh.
joke is good. I'm grimacing at the man that is Russell.
Russell Man.
Yeah. I just get so fucking frustrated whenever someone, you know, starts doing jujitsu and then like turns into a crazy person.
Oh, was that him? He was in that?
Oh yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand now.
He talks a lot about it.
But I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. Just
It
like
raises his consciousness.
just
Just
like
kidding. I don't know that he said that.
Oh man, God.
Sounds like maybe he said it. I don't know.
It's possible.
There's a lot of really crazy people that get really good at jujitsu, And then since they're good at that one thing, they think that they understand a lot of other stuff, even though they haven't put the time into those things that they've put into jiu-jitsu. And that is probably one of the most frustrating things about my goddamn existence. Is that it's like, hey, how many hours have you spent on the mat? 20,000, bro. How much time have you spent studying structural engineering? Probably about 6 hours on YouTube.
I read part of the Wikipedia article on it.
There were some words I didn't understand, and it went to other articles, but
I didn't follow those links.
yeah, I didn't follow those links.
That feels like such a uniquely. It feels like jujitsu is a very unique thing to get into that can foster that can help foster and perpetuate that.
It really is.
That idea about someone's self.
It really is, because it's such an individual sport. And so you, no two people are going to sort of, well, if you're training at a good gym, if you're training at a good sort of competitive gym, no two people at that gym are going to roll exactly the same way. So it really is up to the individual to find your own path and your own set of moves that work for your temperament, your
Russell
body
talks
type.
about that too, finding your own path.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's
Just
why
waiting for that one.
we're basically, he and I, like, that's why I just like
You guys
him so
are like
much.
almost identical.
Yeah. He's stepping on my demographic.
You know
That's
who
really
else is
why.
big into Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
Oh, I think I know.
Oh,
Maynard.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
I-
say Joe
I-
Rogan, but I didn't want to.
Another
go
fucking
for
person
the
without
belt.
hair that pisses me off. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Such as myself. Look at this.
Aw.
Yeah.
No.
But I like
Oh.
Maynard.
Like, he's compared to Rogan,
I'm
he's less
repping
bad.
Maynard today, by the way,
Yeah,
with
no.
my bottle opener and my.
He did a really good interview with fucking Lars Ulrich
Mm.
of all people.
Joe Rogan did.
No, Maynard. I guess Lars has like a podcast sort of thing
Yeah, on
on.
Apple.
Oh, interesting.
It's on some network. It's on. Do you know what it is? It's like
I thought it was on Apple. On
Ma-
like
maybe it was.
music.
It was
or
a YouTube.
whatever.
It was like a revolver clip on YouTube. Or
Oh,
some shit,
okay.
something like that. you
Yeah,
know?
sure.
But he had like a 30-minute talk with Maynard where Maynard just like sounded like a person, and I was like, that's cool
Yeah, Maynard is
because
So-
you don't always get that from Maynard.
No,
No.
he guards who he is very, very closely.
Yeah, I my sort of there was a one specific thing that Maynard said. There were two things that Maynard did.
There were probably a lot of things.
There were two specific ones like 10 years ago that like just sort of permanently, or that put him on like my bad side for a while. And one was when he like sort of like judo through that fan on stage and like held him in like
yeah.
a scarf hold, you know?
Patted him on the back.
Yeah, which is, it's like, I don't know. That could go either way, whatever. But then he talked about, and this is like very, I understand how hypocritical this is of me because I've also talked shit on Tool fans from time to time. But when Maynard talks shit on his fans, that really hit me in a wrong way of talking about, yeah, most of them fucking smell bad and da 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 da. You know, why would I want to be around them? Or, you know, and it was, and like some of the things he said about like, this is my fucking stage and da 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 da. You know, I don't know, man. It hit me the wrong way at the time.
Yeah.
So, and it because also at the time I was like, this guy's misrepresenting jujitsu in a, you know, because that's not like jujitsu is about like humility and about this blah blah blah. And like now I'm like, no, he's actually representing it quite accurately because that's how a lot of these motherfuckers are.
It's a better representation of the population of jiu-jitsists.
Than I wanted it to be. Yeah. Yeah. That was a hard thing. That was a
It's a bummer in a different way.
yeah. I struggled really hard finding motivation once I got my purple belt because sort of up to that point, the vulnerable spot that I was, the particular spot I was in my life, and that kind of vulnerability that I was in, the people who were better at jiu-jitsu than me were the men I wanted to be more like. You know, I want to be this kind of father one day. I want to be this kind of husband one day. I want to be this kind of citizen one day. And then when it got to the point to where like the people that were better than me at jiu-jitsu, I thought were like amoral douchebags, I started to lose some of my motivation.
Right.
because I do love the art. I love the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But it was fulfilling something for me that was sort of very, it was, I don't know. It's hard to put words to, but it wasn't just like, oh, this is a fun thing I like doing. Like, it was giving me a system of male approval to operate within. And if I do these things, then men I respect will approve of me. And that, and even if I'm homeless, even if I have to sleep in my car, if I have that, then I'm going to be okay.
Because you could defend yourself.
But that's not really what it was about. Because I wasn't having to defend myself all the time. But I needed to know.
But I mean, if you were homeless, you may.
I may. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
If I'm
You'd
sleeping
be
in the
okay.
car.
Right.
Yeah. Excuse me, sir. I might have to beat this cop up. Excuse me, sir. Yeah.
I got 4 black belts.
That felt weird.
I'm sorry.
That felt weird.
How many do you have a black belt yet?
I don't. No,
You
no,
don't.
No, no.
So did you just kind of
I was back into it.
stall out?
Well, there's another aspect of it too, which was, once I started dating Allison, you know, like, it was almost like, so there's this thing that supposedly, I think it's like a Bruce Lee quote about like Jeet Kune Do or something, or about martial arts, that like you use it as a boat to get you across the river.
Okay.
Or something, like as a raft to get you across the river. But once you've got across, you don't need to keep carrying it around anymore. Like that kind of idea. I needed the structure and everything of jiu-jitsu to get me past a certain point. But then once I got past it, I didn't need it as much. Like once it was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be a fucking musician. Once that light bulb went off, and it got demoted a little bit. And then once I got married, you know, and I had all these other modes of significance, you know, but then I got into a really good place with it. And I was like, yeah, this fits in my life well, like right before COVID hit, you know, and it wasn't, there were some people who it was important enough for them to risk and do it during COVID, but it wasn't important enough for me.
Right.
You think you'll get back to it?
When Max gets vaccinated, when my 4-year-old is able to get vaccinated, I think
Yeah.
I will. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's really the big hang up.
It's good when you can go back to those things with a different perspective. If it's still important to you and you
Yeah.
know, be able to re-engage.
Yeah, because I really do love the art of jiu-jitsu, and you know, and there's a whole myriad of things there, because it's easy when you're, you know, like no one gym, no one teacher has ownership or jurisdiction of the entire art.
Okay.
And so if you're at a gym that you don't vibe with, or you've run into some black belts that you don't vibe with, or some other, you know, practitioners you don't vibe with, that's not necessarily reflecting on the entire art. And it's not, or it's not reflecting on what the art can be. Right? Like you can't just, if you're getting something good out of something, you can't let jerks and douches just come in and live in there rent free and take jurisdiction over it. I mean, you've experienced that with your with some of your tattoos.
Yeah. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Why don't you fill Robert in on that?
I wasn't gonna ask, but if you wanna go into it,
It's not like a dig tattoo or nothing.
I can't imagine that would be a problem for anybody.
So years ago, are you talking about the one on my leg?
Yes.
So years ago, I went through this period where I had a group of friends that every year for my birthday, they would all kind of pool their money and give me a birthday tattoo. Like I had the like Shae birthday tattoo fund kind of thing.
Oh. Did it have to be like a certain size? Or...
No. It was all
Okay.
dependent on how much everybody pulled together and what money I had at the time. And it was kind of like, I think it was like the earliest I've ever, you know, crowdfunded something.
Right. If you'd been able to kickstart this.
Yeah. This was probably
GoFundMe.
2005, maybe. So it was like, I was a pioneer.
You were ahead of the curve.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so a group of us went to Texas Legends. They used to have a second shop on I-10 near Sheldon Road. And we're up there one night, and they had Guar going on one of the TVs,
As they do.
as all of them seem to do.
Yep.
And
Tattoo Shop Network TV station that they just have.
it's a satellite feed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm laying there on the table, and I was getting a big Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. And that symbol has always been very personally important to me. Just the story, the idea that this was something fashioned to kill Thor, and he was able to take the thing that was created to destroy him, and it became his greatest weapon. So as a kind of a nod to that, it was probably the first Nordic tattoo I got out of many. I've got several now. And I get off this table. I've been there for 4 hours on this table, and I had all my friends around me because it was, they'd go with me and watch it and that kind of thing. None of them had tattoos, though. Maybe it was a vicarious thing for them.
Right.
But as I'm getting off the table, the artist in the little booth next door, he's looking at my leg and he nods and he goes, "Where'd you do time?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're Thor's hammer. Where'd you do time? In prison?"
Fuck.
I'm like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Yeah, it's an AB symbol, Aryan Brotherhood."
Oh boy.
I'm like, "Oh,
Okay. Well.
it's done." And still to this day, there have been times where I'm somewhere in shorts and somebody will nod to my leg and approach me and ask comments.
Boy.
The most awkward moment was when we were on a family vacation and we were in Memphis, Tennessee. And we were getting ready to go visit the Civil Rights Museum at the Lorraine Hotel where Martin Luther King had been assassinated. And that in itself is just such a powerful, moving day. The minute I walked on that property, I just started feeling tears. And it's just, there's just a palpable heaviness in the air. Well, we're about to leave the hotel and my wife looks at me and she goes, "Not today. You're wearing pants today. You're not wearing shorts." And I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, yeah." So,
But I wonder what the implication is there. Is that somebody who is also at the Martin Luther King Memorial will recognize it? Because that seems antithetical to me in the first place.
possibly,
But also
but
you're
it's
in...
also known. I think it's a pretty known symbol
Interesting. I'd never heard of it. But
from the standpoint of, Jews know what a swastika looks like. And
Yes.
oppressed people are very familiar with the symbols of their oppressors.
Totally.
And I wouldn't
That makes sense.
ever
That
want
makes sense.
anybody to think that I align with something that
It
is
wouldn't
oppressive.
It wouldn't necessarily be recognized by the people who support it. is what you're saying.
Right,
I
right.
understand.
Yeah.
But by the people who've seen that in an oppressive
Sure.
context.
And I mean, and I can
100%.
I can imagine your wife just being like, "I don't even want to take the chance of having to deal with that today."
Oh yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
Didn't someone call you out at a pool
At the Pirates Bay water park in Baytown.
in Baytown? No.
There's a Baytown water park?
There's two of them.
Whoa. Okay.
Calypso Bay.
I was showing sarcasm at the idea that there were white supremacists in Baytown.
Oh, no.
Oh no, that's another episode for
That's
another
another
time.
one. Yeah.
Death threats.
You've had some heat thrown your way in that regard.
Yes, I have.
Well, I mean,
But
that's...
yeah, someone came up with you, came up to you at the pool or some shit and was like,
Yeah.
"AB for life, bro."
Yeah,
Some shit like that.
and I'm like, wait, what? Oh, no.
Have you thought about getting it touched up or anything?
No.
Just deal with it.
I just deal with it. I see it as an opportunity to confront the racism when it happens, because I'm very fond of Nordic symbols and imagery, and they play a pretty important role for me personally. And I'm not about to let somebody else's misuse of that ruin it for me. But At the same token, I realized that, the swastika was originally a symbol of peace, and
Right.
I'm not going to go try to reclaim that. I think that's permanently ruined.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, can this be saved? Can this be
Right.
salvaged anymore?
Right.
Because at a certain point, if enough people believe it, then it doesn't matter what you
Right.
do.
Well, but my understanding is you do see swastikas in India that
Yes.
have
Well, yeah.
no attachment to that.
Southeastern Asia, it's all over the place because it means something completely detached from
I
what
just
we know it
recently
as.
got runes tattooed on my fingers.
Right. And it's like you can't
It
let
says dick, by the way. Just so I didn't want to say anything, but now that we're on the subject,
Yeah.
well, his real name is Richard.
Yes.
So
I didn't say it was a bad thing.
there's nothing wrong with having
It's
a little
like
bit
a
of
name
dick on your
tag.
hands.
I'm just translating, man. That's all
Oh,
I'm saying.
thank you.
Oh.
But then that's not as bad as I expected. That's more surprising than I expected, I guess. The hammer thing, because I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
But I thought you were gonna say like, I jumped off the table and there was like a giant swastika on my leg, and I didn't ask for that or whatever.
Oh,
but-
okay.
So that's okay.
No, that
Could be worse, I
it,
guess.
it could be. It could be. Yeah, it could be like, a picture of Hitler. Or
It's like, oh, Mjolnir.
yeah.
I thought I drew Hitler. My bad.
I drew Auschwitz.
Portrait of Trump or something.
Yeah. So,
Jesus Christ.
but I do think it's, or Jesus. That would have upset me
Jesus
too.
Christ. Yeah. Wouldn't want that.
But I think it's an important idea to sort of, be mindful. And I think what you do is a really great example, because it's like you're mindful of how some may see the symbol,
Right.
and even just that kind of thing of like, all right, well, there's some people who might think that I am using the symbol in that way, so I am going to be respectful and cover it up.
Right.
But then also, this is important to me for reasons that have nothing to do with racism or white supremacy or any type of cultural supremacy. So I'm not going to let you have it.
Right.
I'm not going to give it up just because you found your way into it and set up shop in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because if we don't do that, then we have to relinquish everything.
Yeah.
We have to like, oh well, man, I can't listen to metal anymore because there's some white supremacists who like metal.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I can't listen to Slayer because, there was a period where they were just in love with some German imagery.
Yeah, like I don't have like a big problem with. I have more problems with the sort of the edgelord incendiary shit that Tom Araya has said the past few years.
Oh yeah.
Oh, has he? I've not.
It's nothing big. It's nothing egregious, but it's just like you're just stirring the pot. You're just trying to you're acting like a teenager kind of.
Okay.
But I don't know, like the way that they sang about it always seemed like they were reporting.
Right. Right. Not glorifying.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, well, because Slayer's whole thing was like, we're going to talk about the worst fucking shit possible.
Right.
And if they're talking about Nazis, that's implying that, because Nazis are the worst fucking shit possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that it shouldn't be examined. I'm just like, that's why it never.
Yeah, the idea or the impression that I always got was more like it was just like a fascinating topic as an objective thing.
Right.
Rather than saying this is how things should be or this is good.
Right. It like Angel of Death is like a horror movie, and like a grotesque horror movie. It's not like what Phil did in Attack the Radical, where he's almost like preaching and telling you like, this is what the history is, and this is how things are, and this is how things should be, and people should feel that. That's not what Slayer does.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it never bothered me,
You will find no Nazi conversations in Pink Floyd's music anywhere.
until today.
I'm pretty sure.
I feel like this playlist was an act of fascism.
Tell me how you really felt about the playlist, because I know that you had some averse reactions.
Okay, so we're gonna get into this now.
So this is part 2 of our discussion. This is, oh shit, what year does this begin? 66?
I think 67.
7, right in between.
Yeah.
So 67 to like 72, I think, is when Saucerful came out, or not Saucerful, but
67
Shit.
was Saucer. 68 was Piper.
Obscured. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Obscured. That was 72.
Yeah, because then we get to 73, and that's everything that we covered last time.
Right.
And so then everything after 70, like 80 and after, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
was Final Cut onwards.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's what we'll cover today. So,
Did you really hate the playlist? I know hate's a strong word, but
I thought you were just referencing the post-war dream where he goes off about some things.
was Echoes the breaking point?
So Echoes has been on our minds before, if you recall.
Is that what you did to me?
That's what I did to you. So
Okay.
Before we actually started doing this podcast thing in earnest, we had an idea to. I think the initial idea was just for me to make a lot of playlists, and we talked about them.
Yeah, the idea was that I was going to do kind of the premise of this show, but do it with a bunch of different people.
Right.
And then I was going to do it. I was just like, oh, well, I'll do like 4 episodes with Robert, and then I'll move on and do episode. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this was the idea a few years ago. So you made like,
So I made like 4 playlists.
well, I think we broke
Or
it down into
one big
4.
playlist, but yeah.
Yeah, it was one big sort of Robert's musicology. It was like a big 6-hour playlist that was, this is who I
It was
am.
just like, here's the shit that's important to me from when I remember liking music to today, basically. And so what I tried to do is put like one song, a couple got duplicate, or not duplicates, but multiple entries, a couple artists. But I tried to put one song for each artist who I wanted to represent.
Okay.
And so for Pink Floyd, I picked Echoes.
Did you?
Yeah, because to me, I mean, we'll get into it, but like that is, to me, it covers all the bases for Pink Floyd. Everything's in there.
Yeah.
Because it's 23 fucking minutes long.
Right.
Everything better fucking be in there.
So I put that on that playlist, and I forget what you said, but you were just like, fucking really? With this shit? Come on. So, anyway.
It's nice to know that
haven't
I'm
counted it.
consistent.
Yeah.
See, okay, can I read this?
Please,
please. He sent me a text message the other day, and he said, "This playlist is stressing me out." And then he followed it up and said, "I was feeling patient until it got to Echoes, and I saw the length. Asterisk flips table over in rage."
You know what? Fair.
Was it just the length?
Okay. So, all right. So we're going to get into this.
Okay.
And y'all are looking at me, so I guess I'm going to talk first. I do have a
Please.
lot to say.
I'm sure.
And so
I got some things to say, too, that I didn't realize I had to say, but I do now.
good.
Awesome.
Good. So the first thing is I feel like I owe some apologies to some people.
Wow.
So the first is Nick Mason. So I don't feel like I spoke necessarily disparaging of Nick Mason in the last episode, but really, I mean, and really the band as a whole, because when I understood that, oh, this has been the same. This is the same, like the entire Pink Floyd discography and lore is really just 5 dudes. You know,
Yeah.
Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Robert Wright, Nick Mason, and Sid Barrett.
Right.
Yep.
You know,
Rick Wright.
oh, is that what he's called?
Yeah.
Okay,
Is it Robert, technically? Maybe it is.
I thought it was
Richard.
Richard Wright.
Yeah. Dick
Did
Wright.
I say Robert?
Yeah.
My bad.
You were looking at me, though. So
Well,
probably happens.
fair enough. But so my perspective changed when I realized that, oh, well, Nick Mason's been on all of this. And then hearing like his drumming on the early stuff and then all that and everything. And I'm like, my God, what an incredibly like prolific drummer and what an incredible unique voice on the drum kit, and how absolutely criminally underrated he is in the drumming community. And this, you know, and then I just thought it, yeah. So yeah, that was one thing. And then the other person that I need to apologize to is Shae, because I don't know what I did to you
Oh no.
to deserve the
playlist.
violence of this playlist.
Did violence upon him.
But I am sorry. From the bottom of my heart, just know that I am deeply regretful of whatever it is that I did.
You know, I don't even know what to say to that because I did my best, man.
So here's what else is a funny. I'm gonna skip around for a second. This is what's funny since I'm throwing daggers at you here.
All right,
Okay.
I can take it.
So when it gets to, Umaguma, or whatever, which I liked,
I thought you would. I really thought you would.
but why did you think I wouldn't like the 7-minute drum solo track?
Oh, I see what's going on here.
You're like, yeah, okay, each one of them have like a whole movement.
Like, yeah.
And I'm going to give the drummer, I'm going to put like a 30-second like postlude of the drummer's movement. I'm going to cut out the 7-minute drum solo so that I have more room for guitar solos in this 3-hour playlist that's nothing but intros.
I mean, we're talking about David Gilmour, though.
Is this
That's what I would have done too.
is this playlist called David Gilmour? Is this a
should have been.
David Gilmour episode?
I mean,
Gilmore presents.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what happened with the Endless River, right? They kind of come full circle, and it was really just David Gilmour. I mean, it wasn't, but it was. No, I
So anyway, I just thought it was really funny that you're like, no. I gotta cut. We're at 2 hours and 53 minutes. We can't get all the way to 3. I have to cut somewhere. I know that Richard's gonna listen to this. I better cut that drum solo.
I wanted to entice you to explore more, and it worked.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you're an asshole. Fine.
But you knew that.
So what I did was I went through it one time, and I have a bunch of like hot take notes,
Right.
and I'm gonna save that for the end.
All right.
we'll have Richard's hot take section, and we'll do that at the end.
All right.
And so, but yeah, the first listen was extremely frustrating for me, and I was able to articulate it upon the second listen. And part of that is just because each one of their albums is such a gear shift from the previous one. And so by the time I got acclimated to a certain vibe or a certain sound, it changed again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so around the time of that 5th or 6th change, I started to get really frustrated and anxious.
Like, just fucking stop it.
Yeah, like God damn it,
Do
guys.
something the same.
Because the first part, like I like all the psych rock shit, and I liked Umaguma, I liked all that, but then
Did you not like Adam Heartmother? Is that where it started to lose you or frustrate you?
it was when it got to so the thing is like Uma is such a big ask of a listen.
Right.
But it's like, okay, well, we're out there. We're going out there. Fine. All right, cool. There's a lot on here. All right, I'm here for it. Okay, cool. This is whatever, right? But then, and then you have the tracks after it, which are cool. But then when it got to One of These Days, when it got to that album, that was like that track started to not pass the smell test, and I started to get a little frustrated. And
In terms of what?
of
Smell test in terms of what?
I just
wasn't vibing for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was because what I think it is that I have a lot of patience for music that sort of crosses some type of imaginary threshold into being out there. So like the Sisyphus tracks,
Or just very blatantly fucking whatever.
Yeah. I have a lot of patience for that.
I
And
thought
also
you
have,
would. Yeah.
And I also have a lot of patience for, organic kind of, here's where we're capturing people in a room going for something. I have a lot of patience for that too.
Mhm.
So as sort of out there as like what is it, like Interstellar Drive, and as weird as that is, I have a lot of patience for that.
Yeah.
But once it started to sort of, well, we're going to do that, but in a very controlled sort of studio composed way.
Yes.
I don't have the,
When they finally found their Pink Floyd sound.
Yes.
Exactly correct.
yes.
And-
Which is when I started fucking loving it.
See, and I thought, because I knew that you and I both had this appreciation for like Secret Chiefs 3 and sounds like that. So I thought, okay, so Uma Guma, he's really going to get into. But for me, and maybe this, tell me what your connection is with that later early stuff.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was like the adolescent period of fumbling around to find how they're going to create a hybrid of these loves that they have that eventually turn into Dark Side of the Moon and that era.
Yep.
But it was, they had to go through that struggling of how to create that first.
Yeah, I think it was probably, I could probably dig through history and do some archaeology and figure it out. But to me, it strikes me as being like the creative powers of like Gilmore and Waters trying to figure out how to coexist.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it finally begins to coalesce on metal.
Yeah.
And then from then till Wish You Were Here is like, that's what I want. That's what I come to Pink Floyd for.
Yeah.
That's the shit right there.
And I think that's why I added the tracks from metal that I did, because there's an element to that almost sounds like this sort of proto wall feel.
Kind of.
That, it's kind of got that Roger Waters.
But it's not as crazy as the Wall gets.
No.
It's not
No.
as Waters. Right?
It did track as that to me. Like, when it got there, it was like, all right, we're getting close to, and let me be clear. All that stuff I just said is to sort of explain why I had that negative reaction the first time.
Okay.
Okay. On second, listen, when it got to the tracks on, like One of These Days, I'm like, that's when it clicked for me, was on the second listen when I got that. I was like, oh, this is so different than what I just heard, which was so different than what I had just heard, which was so different than what I had just heard, which was
Totally.
And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I just had one too many gear shifts.
You're totally right. And I didn't realize that was going to be the case until I got into this playlist again.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how much of the case it was that, like, after this, like, the playlist we did last time, that was, like, a very stable period in a way.
Yeah.
Man, what a great word.
Right? Like, because going from the beginning of this, shit like Astronomy Domain, and I'm surprised you didn't put, like, See and Play on here, because that was always a big one.
Yeah.
But the weird early shit, where it's just, like, psych rock, from the early 60s, mid 60s, on through to everything this goes through, which is all sorts of weird tangents and shit. It's such a weird, like you said, there's a set of gear shifts that I didn't quite remember until they're put next to each other like this. And then you get to that metal area on through to, like I said, like Wish You Were Here, Wall to some extent. And it's very like, all right, we found what we need to do. And then you can sort of see it go in the way of, like, Roger Waters is like taking a bigger piece of the pie over time, and then he leaves. So,
and then when he leaves, you see it kind of, not to get too ahead, but you see the absence or feel the absence of that element.
It takes a huge shift the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And I felt like, so I have to say this, Corporal Clegg.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Pink Floyd songs of all time.
Those two songs were probably my favorite.
Yeah. And I was as I was listening through this playlist, I kind of tried to live with this for the last week.
Mm-hmm.
Much to my wife's frustration sometimes.
God.
And
Hey Jess, resonating with you.
And when I got to Corporal Clegg, first time she'd ever heard it, I'm like, you know why I love this song? She's like, why? Because to my knowledge, at least, this is the only rock and roll song with a kazoo solo.
It does have that.
And
It does have that.
I mean, it's like they just went, you know what? We're willing to try anything. Here we go.
I will say, but before we move on from Echoes, I do want to say that, you know, on the second listen and like sitting with it and whatnot and being in a different headspace, I can totally see how that track can hit the spot for someone the way that absolutely no other piece of music could. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I totally get your point of like, if you're gonna do the thing either direction, right?
I don't think that's the right way. I'm not saying that's right. It's just, I mean,
Okay.
and I just think that going through this, it highlighted that for myself. That it's like, okay, that's what I have patience for, and as opposed to what I don't have patience for.
That's what I mean. Like, I see how you can see that.
Yeah.
Basically, like I don't feel that way. Like I feel like that's where they nailed it, because I guess I don't have a problem with if they were gonna have a vibe of like a jam sort of thing. I guess it just doesn't bother me that much. But I see how you could have a aversion to that, right?
Right. And I mean, but really, I think it really is just all of the stark differences is what really turned me off the first time. And I have a whole list of like negative hot take shit that I said about a lot of stuff that we'll throw on after we get through all of it. But
I look
yeah,
forward to it.
But yeah, let's back up a little. So before we get into this, I want to. So, because what does the word psychedelic mean to you in the context of art? Like, what makes art psychedelic to you?
I'll start. I don't really have anything. I don't like that term in the first place. It kind of bothers me.
Explain.
It's kind of annoying to me. It's kind of
Like grunge.
in a different way. Maybe
Let's start a
so, yeah.
psychedelic grunge band.
Oh, there has to be somebody. I can't think of anybody. Anyway.
That was Mother Love Bone.
Oh shit. Maybe you're right. But I don't know. It seems like a term that came about at that time to, like Alternative did in the 90s, to define a thing that was happening then, and that it just never got a better term. Because to me, I'm just like, I don't fuck it. It means late 60s music to me. But it doesn't really tell me anything about the quality of the music,
Right.
if that makes sense.
What about to you?
To me, because that's a very, to me it indicates a much smaller, narrower subset of late 60s music than just late 60s music.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't call
Yeah, for sure.
Creedence Clearwater Revival
No.
psychedelic.
No.
I really
Yeah,
wouldn't
sorry, I
call
should
it
have
at all.
specified.
But no, that's fine. But
That's Vietnam movie music.
right, yeah, or Lebowski's music. One of the two.
True.
What was that Vietnam TV show that they used a lot of their music in?
MASH?
No, that was
That's Korea.
Korea. Oh, Dana Delaney was in it, and oh, come on, China Beach.
I never heard of that.
Oh, wow. I was a little too young. I do remember that now that you say
I
it.
suddenly feel really old. All right. Anyway,
I love
You should
MASH,
be
though.
used to that by now.
I am. So yeah, psychedelic music to me, it's like it's a marketing term. So I don't really like it a whole lot, but I don't. Again, what else are you going to call it? But it's music.
It's a useful tag,
That
right?
yeah, it's music that is typically associated with the LSD mushroom tripping community and their music from the late 60s. You know, Jefferson Airplane. You know, I think the quintessential psychedelic rock song is White Rabbit.
Yeah.
But I think in a different way, when you ask the question about psychedelic in relationship to art, period, I think it's art that puts your mind in a different space and is not linear. You know, it's not, you know, to some degree, I think pop art is psychedelic, you know, especially with Andy Warhol and some of the stuff that he was doing and some of the films. But it's art that tries to put your brain in a different space that the majority of the other music just doesn't force you to think like that or
Yeah.
or
Doesn't ask that much of you.
experience something. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I guess that I can see that.
so my spiel is so yeah, some people define it as art that was made while on psychedelics. So if you're,
Right.
like if it's influenced by psychedelics, then it's psychedelic art, is how some people would define it. Some people define it as music that was made during a certain time,
Okay.
or influenced by certain culture. So
That's really the bigger thing for me.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
yeah. And but to me, I think of it as art that has some type of disassociative quality to it that sort of suspends the feeling of time and space in some way, that sort of gets you to ask this question of, sort of where am I? When am I? How
Right.
long have I been here? Things like that. So in that, but by my definition, that means that bands like Meshuggah have a psychedelic element to them.
Sure.
Or for me, bands like Nile. You don't get it as much on Nile's records, but when you see Nile live, to me, there's a psychedelic quality to it, because you can just kind of turn off your cerebral brain and you're still going to be guided through an experience.
I would say Tool's live shows are like that.
I was going to bring up Tool as the other
Sure.
example that I can think of. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And then you think about like the nature of those songs, they're nonlinear.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's not, because a song that has sort of a grounded, intro, verse, chorus, bridge, you always, have your sense of space. You have your sense of location in a song like that. All right, we're in the
Yeah.
middle of the song and we're fixing to not be in the middle of the song. But, if you're, if you're watching a jam band or something like that, and the band is going out into outer space, you don't know when it's going to end and you don't know where it's going to go.
Right.
And that's going to suspend the sensation of time. It's going to make you experience time in a different way.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of, so almost everything on this playlist has some aspect of that.
Yeah.
To me, and I don't know. I wanted to get y'all's sort of viewpoint on that, because it's a term that gets thrown. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but it's especially going to get thrown around a lot when you're talking about Pink Floyd.
Oh, totally, yeah. I guess the other thing I would say about that is, I think people use it typically to describe music that takes you on a journey, sort of like you said. It's a
Right.
pretty standard thing, which I love. That's one of my favorite things when music can do that,
Right.
or art in general. But music typically lasts a duration, as opposed to looking at visual art or whatever.
Right.
I guess you can do that too, but that's fine. I'm not a big visual art guy, so let me just get that out there. Sorry, Justin. No. But so I love that about music and art in general, that it can take you on a journey. I just don't care to call it psychedelic. I just care to enjoy the journey and
Sure.
have that be the thing.
Psychedelic
Because
has a really cheesy feel to
it
it.
just has a certain connotation to it that I don't care
Yeah.
to invoke.
Yeah,
I
because
guess.
if you stretch my definition like a little bit, then it's like, well, that's all music, asshole. That's all art. And I understand.
But you're being
that.
specific on it's not intro, verse, chorus, verse, outro, or whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
And Tool is a weird example because they definitely take you on that journey, but it's a very the structure of that song. It's not a jam band, and that is equally valid, but a different thing, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. Like, this is not jam band,
No.
Right.
which I'll talk about later. That's in my hot take section.
All right.
All right.
So, but yeah. So is it just me, or does the Interstellar, whatever, does it have like
Overdrive.
a big space trucking? Like, is it almost playing the riff to space trucking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't the only person who's hearing that. So is that like Syd Barrett? Is this like a quintessential Syd Barrett guitar song?
I think so.
Because the guitar's fucking weird
Yeah.
and like sloppy and goofy, but amazing. but maybe not
Was
in
it-
key.
Is this the one where towards the end it's just like hitting the pickups with the fucking
Yeah.
string and it's just like tink, tink, tink,
Mhm.
super loud and grating? Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
So another thought that I had on listening to the first record specifically is it almost sort of feels like they were trying to capture what they did live and just weren't quite able to.
Very possibly.
And because like what I've heard about like the Meters record, the
Right.
first Meters record, they were playing those songs in like long jam formats every night, you know, like, and then it was like, then they went into a studio and it was like, well, you gotta like, I know that that's like a 12-minute jam when y'all are a 15-minute jam. But we need to make it a 3-minute song. And so all of those songs are like this very tight distillation of these longer sort of improvisational vibe musical statements. And I wonder if there was like sort of a similar thing going on their first record of, you know.
It feels like that. I don't know the story, but I bet that's probably pretty accurate. I also think the space between Saucer and Piper, when they had brought in David Gilmour to try to add some stability, there's that word.
Right.
There's
You
a
know,
jump.
Yeah,
There's a jump.
and I think there was some definite frustration on Syd Barrett's part. I don't know if you've read much about, but he introduced this song to the band called "Have You Got It Yet?" And they're playing through it, and every time it was like they would almost figure out what he was doing, he would change what he was doing, and then they would almost figure it out, and he would change what he was doing. You know, either the meter, the key, he was like really, and you get that feeling like that's just how his brain worked in a lot of the songs on Saucer. And he just had this extremely nonlinear approach to music.
Yeah.
And that was actually the reference in Dark Side of the Moon. And when the band you're in starts playing different tunes, they're talking about "Have You Got It Yet?"
Was he just fucking with them on that one?
Yeah.
Because it's called "Have You Got It Yet?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, that I feel like I've worked with people that are kind of like that, and when it works, it's amazing. But
Yeah.
it's real frustrating to try to build something with guys like that. I'm not talking about Michael with Small Deal. That's not him at all. Like me and Michael worked very well together, and we built stuff really, really well. I'm talking about someone else. Just to be clear,
No. I mean,
I mean, Small Deal we did call ourselves like psychedelic, you know, funk.
You called yourselves the Pink Floyd of Houston, Texas. We all know.
Yeah. I just don't.
No, I think, and to me, that's something I really value about those early years. And I think that's, you know, I've made the comment to you before that I feel like even though he wasn't there for more than one album and one song,
Right.
he had such a lasting impression on
Clearly.
them
Sure.
that
They made albums about him for like a decade past
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Totally.
And I mean, he had such an influence on those guys because he taught them how to think differently. And I think they spent
Probably true, yeah.
the rest of their musical career trying to do right by that.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like the first era, that pre-Dark Side of the Moon era, is them sort of taking the assumptions of or the premises of Syd Barrett to as many to like, well, let's let these premises play themselves out,
Right.
you know, and let's stretch these out. And I will say that I think that the pre-Dark Side of the Moon Pink Floyd that band might have the potential to be one of my favorite bands ever. So
Wow.
Damn.
I
Whoa. Can we just like hold on a minute? That's
wait, hold on. Pre-metal. I mean pre-metal.
All right. That's a profound switch for you. I feel like.
Well, how so?
Well, you just say has the potential to be.
I
What is
can't.
that contingent on?
me spending more time with it,
Okay.
and not and knowing more about it than just these.
I've
playlists.
often felt that if you
That's what I
spent time with Umaguma, you would really dig that album.
I really did. You put almost all of it minus the drum solo and the live tracks.
that was and you know, Rob will understand this struggle. If I'd have done that, I just should have put the whole album on there.
Exactly.
You know, and you got to stop somewhere.
But you were so close to putting the whole thing on there.
You know, what was really difficult was I genuinely wanted to put the entire Momentary Lapse of Reason on there. That's actually my favorite Pink Floyd album, even though it sounds probably the most dated.
It definitely does sound that.
So tell me more about this record.
That's near the end. You know, that was one of the later ones.
Okay.
Well, let's get to that.
Okay, I got it. But yeah, I really liked all the Sisyphus tracks and all that. So there is a funny thing that happens at the end of, I guess it's part 4. It totally sounds like a Cradle of Filth song.
Really?
Yeah. It has like, you know, because like all the synths and this, you know, and all this sort of stuff. I don't know if I can let me see if I can pull up an example to kind of convey the idea. But yeah, I really liked Umaguma overall. I really, really did. And so that was kind of what Richard Wright's baby. Like that was like his idea. Like, let's all go in the studio and each one of us does like a solo movement.
Suite of, yeah.
So, I mean, I just read the Wikipedia article. I don't fucking know.
Something like that. Yeah.
His research.
Deep dive.
But like, you know, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So
It's almost like Phantom of the Opera.
you know, well, you know, man,
Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote Metal.
It's not bad.
I could probably find a better example, but it gave me those vibes. You know, like there's probably like a lot of like early 90s or you know, like mid 90s symphonic black metal that probably sounds a lot like the last minute of Sisyphus 4.
Yeah. Just that first part there.
Right. Yeah. Not that as
You didn't
much.
like that part? That was kind of rhythmic.
What are you talking about?
Never mind. I'm just
Sorry.
just giving you shit.
But yeah, and so like then Grant Chester Meadows. That was Roger Waters.
Yes.
That was his dig.
So I have to say something about this song. And between this song and especially Saucer Full of Secrets, it's like, where was Alan Parsons? I really feel like these albums, for all of the greatness of them, the engineer, the mixing really makes the product suffer to some extent. And I think Grantchester Meadows is one of those, because lyrically, it is one of the most ingenious, inventive uses of the English language. You know, especially when you get to that chorus, the way that he's using the phonetics of the words to almost make a very rhythmic musical. The hear the lark and hearken to the barking of the dog fox gone to ground. You know, this.
Yeah.
But the one criticism of that song is that the EQ on that bird noise drives me crazy. I can't just focus on the beauty and majesty of the song. Maybe that's what they were trying to do. I don't know. But there's this definite contrast between this like melodic, lazy, kind of lilting verse from Roger Waters with this annoying bird going through the whole damn song. And I think if it just had been EQ'd differently, it might have been a nice accent, but it's like this gigantic middle finger through the whole song.
Is that how it hits you, Rob?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I mean, I didn't love it.
Okay.
I didn't love Umaguma, honestly, going back to it.
I found that track with all of the sounds and whatnot, I found it really charming. Especially like reading what it was supposedly about.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, man, that's nice. That's nice. All I could think about is like, how Because like now, if you want to get sounds like that, you just have like a Zoom H4 and you walk around and just point and shoot with your battery operated field recorder. No fucking problem, man. I'm like, how the hell? What equipment did they have to drag around to get those sounds?
Right. This is another one of those things, kind of like all the wild shit that they did on Dark Side and stuff like that, where like I wish I could have been there when this was contemporary to like really understand the impact that it had.
Right.
Because it's so wild.
Yeah.
And I feel like it kind of got lost with all the other stuff that happened.
Sure. Yeah.
But
It's clear that even I guess you could really, really definitely say starting at Umaguma, they're making records where they're not just experimenting with songs, like they're experimenting with sound
and technique and everything.
And you as a listener, what's the experience going to be like? Not just hearing these notes in this order and this lyric and this melody, but what if you hear, how's it going to feel to hear this sound?
Yeah.
How's it going to feel to hear that sound? What if this sound sweeps from, and all that? And you can tell that they're really, it's made for a different, when there's a different listener experience, that's the predominant one, the predominant modality. Like we were talking about last time, that, this isn't made to listen to in your car. Like,
I really
sit the fuck down.
I really
Exactly,
wish I
yeah.
could have been in the room when the record executives heard this for the first time. To me, there are so many other bands and movements that I feel like owe themselves to this era of Pink Floyd. And maybe it's putting too much weight. I mean, I know that everybody gets inspiration from somewhere, and they got it from somewhere, and I probably just don't know where they got it from.
What's an example of a band that you feel?
Nurse with Wounds, Psychic TV, Genesis Peorage.
No. I asked for bands, relevant bands.
Wilco. I think
I asked for relevant.
Damn.
Ouch. I'm just being funny, guys.
Oh, is that it? Is that what funny? No,
I'm laughing.
awkward. No,
funny, odd, not
Yes.
funny, haha.
Yes. No, I mean, there have been a lot of bands that I feel like owe something to this era of Pink Floyd.
Well, the ambition of it, right? Like
Right.
The idea of not staying. I mean, and I guess like that's maybe what I was trying to sort of put my finger on last time, where I was trying to sort of compare it to the Beatles.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, because I mean, I guess some of this is like, oh, this is Beatles with a not as much of a budget, maybe, or something. Some of these first few records.
Well,
maybe.
and I know that like the White Album, and we mentioned it last week even, Pet Sounds, they were experimenting with things that they were getting from other places. They were being inspired by what was going on in the sort of very early days of the noise movement. Pink Floyd just went, okay, we're going to live here for a while.
The commitment to make a whole album, that experiments, and like make a whole album of music that you can't play live.
Yeah.
And I guess it's sort of counterbalanced
Mike Patton. That's a relevant musician that
I suppose
I think owes something to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a bad point.
I think that it's so I mean I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'm not
That's a hill I'm gonna fight on right there.
I'll do a fucking Faith No More cast. Let's go.
Oh man.
yeah, let's do that.
Or just Mike Patton, that you do like a whole series of
I'm more
Mike
familiar with like more of Mike Patton than Yeah, no, I'm not terribly familiar with Faith No More, so I'd be very down for that.
Yeah, I'd be down for Faith No More any day.
Oh, so speaking of, I mean, this just goes along. I'm just my rattling thoughts. Like, it's fascinating to consider how they recorded this before you had like a fucking, graphical user interface, like the editing on like specifically the drum solo song, where how the things are
There's
like,
a drum solo song on there?
are like sort of fading out and panning and stuff like that. And just,
Yeah.
I mean, I was even thinking about that whenever we were doing the Pantera episodes or whatever. And you know what I
Sure.
mean? Before,
Because even in the mid '90s, it wasn't like it
standard.
is today. Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't standard.
it was a special thing. But yeah, back then, there are stories of them like just like, having to sit there and like under a microscope like cut tape and they glue it back together or whatever the fuck they had to
Right.
do at that point.
Right, and just the
That was editing. That was
right. It wasn't click click click.
yeah.
And so it's so humbling in so many ways to think about it, and to think about the like the clarity and the audacity of their vision
Right.
Mm-hmm.
to do that at that time with those tools, because you weren't just fucking around with you didn't just fuck around with the tools and end up there.
Right. You went in knowing what you wanted to do.
Yeah. And man, that is
You know,
monolithic.
it's funny to me though, because there've always been that's like a mark, in my opinion, of the sort of genius of some musicians. And I know that Adam Yauch worked the same way. Beastie Boys. That I remember. Did you watch the Beastie Boys story on Apple? Check it out. Do you have Apple TV?
I've heard it was great though.
It was so good, and it gave you such an appreciation for his genius. And the other it's just the other two. It's Mike D and Ad Rock talking about their history, but it's really a love letter to Adam Yauch. And they talk about walking into his room one day. This is pre Licensed to Ill, and he's got this reel-to-reel that he's found. And he's got it strung around like a chair and a table. And he's got it, strung all around his room so that he could slow down the drums on When the Levee Breaks. And it's like he was looking for any way to do something different that would inspire him. And for a short time, I used to have a banjo. And that was one of the funnest things that changed the way I approach songwriting. Was just doing something completely different and got my brain in a different space. But these guys take that to a completely different level. And I think it's that willingness, that sort of fierceness to put your career on the line and album after album after album change the rules again.
Right, yeah.
Till you find something, and then they hit gold.
Right. And man, did they hit gold when they hit it.
Yeah.
And what's maybe what elevates them for me is that, like, absent all that shit, I still like everything that I like, that so much of what they've done I love.
What do you mean?
Not even taking any of that stuff into account. What it pioneers of new ways of thinking about music or whatever.
Just the end product.
You can just
Even just that.
I see.
Fucking wonderful.
You don't need to know the story.
Right. That doesn't affect my enjoyment.
Right. Yeah.
It does, but it doesn't.
It doesn't diminish it.
Not how I
the
got
absence
there.
of it.
Yeah. I mean, because there's some music that it's kind of, it loses a lot if you don't know the story behind it. And you don't know the struggle that went into it or whatever. But then there's some music that's like, I don't care how they made it or how easy or how hard it was. This is just give it to me.
It's like if you're in the middle of a terrible movie and somebody goes, "Hey, this was based on a true story," it instantly gets better.
I'm with Robert.
It's on the movie, I guess.
Depends on the story. So
Do you have an example of this?
No, I don't. Oh, that Not Without My Daughter movie with Sally Fields back in the 80s. Sorry, I'm showing my age again.
I was really hoping you were gonna say like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, that was.
I was like, that started off amazing. What are you talking about?
that never did.
Communion with the.
Is that the Alien movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or like how they marketed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They said it was a true story.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Did we have this discussion?
We did.
We did.
We did.
Yeah. How'd that discussion go, Shae? Why don't you recap it for us?
I'm kidding. You recap it, because I do remember also getting into Blair Witch. The marketing for Blair Witch was the same way, but they didn't pull it off as well.
So
I don't know. I would argue that they did for the demographic that they were aiming for.
Maybe.
Because I went into that fucking movie not knowing what it was. Sort of half expecting that it was like, wait, really? How did you do this movie then? You
Yeah.
know, that kind of
Right.
not fully buying
A
into
real
it, but like
snuff film.
it worked. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, we got into like a little bit of a disagreement one time because he was like, did you know the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on a real story?
Yeah.
And I was like, no,
I was
Shae,
a
it
sucker
wasn't.
for the marketing.
I was like, no, it wasn't. It was loosely based on Ed Gein, but he didn't even own a chainsaw
Much less a massacre.
or live in Texas. He lived in Wisconsin.
Right.
Gigi Allen.
What about Gigi
Oh
Allen?
no.
He
Going back
wanted to
tattoos.
be that. Yeah, never mind.
I'm gonna shit my pants on stage. It's art. Oh, am I thinking of the right
Nonlinear.
guy?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Everyone says with resignation. So then the next record, what's the next record called?
Obscured by Clouds? That one?
With the cow on it?
That's Adam Hart Mother.
Oh, Adam Hart Mother. Yeah.
Cool. So it's funny because it got to this one, and on the first listen, I barely remembered these songs at all because I think that just like my synapses were just fried from Umaguma. But on second listen, I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
And then Summer 68, I'm like, this is a cool horn thing. And then I love the piano and orchestration in this song. And that this is the Summer 68. That was the song that made me have the thought of like, this era probably has the potential to be my favorite band. And I think one of my favorite bands, I think a big part of it is the piano playing and having that color featured so predominantly in there.
Yeah.
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 It really highlights what a fantastic player he is.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I have a whole life. I feel like I have the rest of my life because that's what's going to take to understand the genius of Richard Wright and Nick Mason.
They both are really understated. Like they really genuinely are.
Yeah, I mean, you've got two other dudes like Waters and Gilmore in the band. Like, you're gonna get overshadowed. It's kind of just a fact of life, unfortunately.
I mean, I bet those paychecks helped, but still.
Sure, sure, yeah.
But still, like you can't fake that artistry that those two dudes had, and then on I guess on their later material how they come in perfect. Because I mean, like that was the thing that was on that middle era of Pink Floyd. It was like I sort of had this idea that I thought that at that time they might have been on their fifth drummer. And they finally got a guy that would just calm the fuck down and do what they told him to do. And that maybe that like they had a keyboard player live, but really David or Roger did it.
Right. It was just like studio guys they got, or touring rather.
That's really what I thought.
It was like Steely Dan.
Exactly.
That's
That was
exactly
the
what I thought it was
comparison you
like.
made, yeah.
Yeah.
And so to like find out that it's like, no, man, they have their own Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr.
Exactly. It is. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Except Bono didn't play bass.
Thank God.
Thank God. The less Bono does, the better. I'm
Yeah.
just go ahead and say.
Keep him humble. Keep him humble.
It's working, huh? It's working. Yeah.
No, they've been trying for decades and they can't pull it off.
All right. So what do you like? All right. So on
I like
metal,
a lot of things.
What do you
What
like?
do you like?
So when it got to metal is sort of right on the threshold. Is that the last record before Dark Side, or is there another?
Metal and then Obscured by Clouds,
Yeah.
and then Dark Side.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. So how do those records sit for y'all?
For me, For me, Adam Hart Mother is where they start to find, I guess, what eventually becomes their sound. Metal is where it gets matured a little bit, and then Obscured is where it just really gets refined. And it's a really nice precursor to where they go from there. But there's nothing. It's like they've figured out where the hybrid of the sort of avant-garde stuff meets with the traditional, and they're just kind of honing their craft at that point.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly how I feel about it. Because like metal is where I think they like hit their stride really. But Adam Hart Mother, like If is a great example of that. Like where they kind of have a cool, interesting lyrical theme, and it's just a solid track the whole way through. It's just very Pink Floyd. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just a great Pink Floyd song that feels like it could fit anywhere in the next 10 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so the album before Dark Side, the one with like what's
the deal?
What's the deal?
Okay, yeah, Obscured by Clouds.
Yeah.
What do you feel like there's a big jump between that one and Dark Side, or does it feel like, well, they're doing close to the same thing? Dark Side is just the one that got legs. I guess, like, how unique do you feel like Dark Side of the Moon is compared to this one?
You want to go first?
I think it's a huge jump.
I think it's a huge jump too.
Okay.
I think Dark Side is hugely unique for one thing.
I think
Okay.
I think a lot of that's the production and the engineering and all that stuff. But I think a lot of that is just they had these ideas and they went in and they executed like flawlessly, and they were all very interesting ideas.
How fucking insane is it that in what 5 years, 6 years, they go from Piper at Dawn or Saucer Full of Secrets to Dark Side of the Moon?
Yeah.
That is, oh my God.
With the same 4 guys.
It's amazing to consider that music itself could move that, like the effort of the entire culture
So
could move that far in 5 years.
Yeah.
And technology and all of it could you know?
Because I think of 5 years ago from now, and I'm like, I was doing the same shit I'm doing now. Like,
yeah.
And they did that. Like, God damn it, man.
So when I was in college, I remember my music theory professor would get really frustrated when we would talk about there's
No. I'm resisting my urge to make old jokes. That's what's going on.
All right.
And I'm like, I gotta stop. It's
all good.
getting
old.
there. It is.
Yeah.
So your music theory professor.
Yeah. He would get frustrated when we would talk about 20th century composition and try to get, out of tonal harmony and into more modern avant-garde stuff. And his point was that has a place, but you have to know the rules before you learn how to break them. And I feel like what they did, especially on Obscured and Metal, was that they defined their rules. And then when they went into the studio for Dark Side of the Moon, they went, okay, now that we've figured out our rules, let's break them. Let's go back to the beginning and figure out how to take where we are and make it perfect. Like the best hybrid possible. And it's like they stayed more consistent. Their music became more linear at that point.
Sure.
But they decided to, like, it was a huge ambition to, like, shoot. I was going to say shoot for the moon. Totally unintended pun. But they hit it.
Right. It almost sort of reminds me of the I know there's lots of reasons why this doesn't apply, but sort of from like And Justice for All to the Black Album of that, those first 4 Metallica albums are, like they're finding maybe not their rules, but they're finding their limits. How far do we want to go that way? How far do we want to go that way? How far do we want to go that way? And you kind of get all that out, and then you're able to make this very focused record where you've kind of like gotten all of your ego and bullshit out of the way, and now you can prioritize the sonic quality of it. You can prioritize the details of it.
And they got a real ass producer to come in.
Yeah. And
not
by
just
virtue
someone who
of that,
will agree with your drummer.
Yeah. Same on Dark Side, yeah.
Yeah, and by the same virtue, they simplified their songwriting to an extent. I mean, and really and truly, Dark Side of the Moon has some pretty simplified songwriting, but they, in simplifying the songs, they opened up.
That's not me, is it? That's you.
I don't think it's me, is it? Nope.
It was me. It was me, Austin.
By the way, my favorite Pink Floyd song of all time, On the Turning Way. We'll get to that later.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so there's a different level of, the songwriting and the structures are streamlined on Dark Side, but the execution is no less masterful.
Oh,
It's top fucking notch at that
Yeah.
point.
But it's not masterful in sort of a everything but the kitchen sink kind of way.
No.
The way that like Umaguma is or something like that.
yeah.
Right.
They took a very much less is more approach and made something really magical.
Right. Yeah. Like once you've played all the notes,
Right.
then
There are
you
no
can
notes left to
then
play.
you can go and just play the notes that count, I guess.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
a way to say it. Sounds dumb coming from a guy who's in like a death that's like into technical death metal. I still haven't found all the notes.
Yeah, one of these days.
And that's, I think that's, and maybe it was Jeff Tweedy, but somewhere along the way I picked up this phrase of songwriting that, yeah, go in, record, do whatever you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then take out everything that it doesn't have to have.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know the whole story with that album. I've resisted the urge to watch the documentaries that they've made about Dark Side because it like demystifies it a little bit.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I get it.
But I often wonder. I have listened to the demos.
Mm.
And
How close are they?
very close.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like they didn't go in and record all this elaborate stuff and then streamline and bring it down. The demos were pretty.
They'd already done the work.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that doesn't surprise me because then while they're in the studio, they focus on the production,
Right.
Right.
and not the songwriting.
And that's even more wild because it was only a year before their previous album. Or since their previous album, I should
Yeah.
say.
Right.
And there was like, imagine how much work went into like, because they went out and did a lot of interviews for Dark Side, right?
Yeah.
Because it's full of just snippets of people just saying shit, and they took the stuff that was like that worked for the thematic stuff that they wanted to do and weaved it in, and then to actually physically do that in the studio took so much more work than it does today, like you were saying earlier.
Oh, sure.
But to have, like you said, like have that idea going in
Yeah.
and then execute on it, that part blows me away still to this day. Like yes, this album is highly rated, possibly overrated. I don't know, but it's crazy that it happened, and it is as good as it is.
It seems to be a really unique record in the sense that I don't really know that it's like it is insanely highly rated, but I don't know that it's. I don't know. I don't know that it's really overrated.
Maybe it's not. I wouldn't say that it is, but maybe some people would say that it is.
You know,
so.
and again, and even whenever I would wave that critical Pink Floyd flag, mostly just for goofs, I still wouldn't shit on the music. You know, like I mean, it would be like, oh, you know, man, their fans are pretentious or whatever.
They smell bad.
Or Pink Floyd is for people who know the pentatonic scale but hate jazz. You know, like that's who Pink Floyd's for or whatever. All right, so then after that record, then they made a few albums that some people have listened to.
I've never really heard of him.
And then they finally got to Final Cut where stuff started to matter, right? So all right, so we're at Final Cut now.
So we've skipped like 5 years.
Is
6
that
years.
all? No, it's more than that.
73 to 80?
Which is 7.
7 years. What did I say? 5, 6, 7?
So tell me about
73 to 83.
Was Final Cut 83?
Final Cut was 83. 10 years.
Damn.
So now,
right.
Richard had left for this one, right?
No.
Because
he left before Roger did.
he left it like mid-session, but he came back.
Right.
But Final Cut was, for all intents and purposes, it really was just a Roger Waters solo record.
Okay.
And it's actually my least favorite Pink Floyd record.
Okay.
I think it's generally regarded as like the Wall B-sides.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was some leftover material from the Wall, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For good reason.
So so it's one of your least favorites.
Yes.
How do you feel about it, Rob?
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of lukewarm.
It's got some great tracks on it. Like the couple you put on here are okay. Like When the Tigers Broke Free is a really good one.
Yeah.
But it's not anything I ever like seek out really.
This is not an album I'm just gonna sit down and play.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought my notes on it were like, these are incredible lyrics,
Yes.
you know? So, I mean, so what is it missing?
It feels like a Roger Waters solo album for the most part.
So is David Gilmour's sound not present on it? Is it?
It's there here and there. It's just not. I think the songwriting is probably predominantly Waters, which was kind of what the Wall was
Yeah.
as well. Like yeah, once we got to, I'd have to do my research on whether it kind of started at Animals or not, but the Wall was like largely a Roger Waters affair in a lot of ways.
Do you feel like if there was some alternate universe where you didn't hear The Wall, that you would enjoy Final Cut?
Maybe. Maybe.
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's not that it does the same thing The Wall does, but just not as good. It's that it does something different that you don't like as much.
Well, I don't think it has the cohesion that The Wall has at all.
Yeah, it's
okay.
more of a collection of B-sides from that session that sound a lot like that session, that sound like they were written during that session,
Right.
that don't have an overarching
Right.
thematic thing. Yeah.
And that's the whole thing about The Wall that makes it as amazing, right? Is the cohesion.
It's the story.
Yeah,
I
because there
see.
are some amazing individual tracks on that album, but they work well in the context of what that whole thing is. So
It's, you know, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole.
Yeah, the
Or-
result.
yeah.
This is greater than the sum of the parts. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
I'm just you know, and I agree. I think Roger Waters is an incredible lyricist, and he's a great songwriter. I've always felt that his vocals were not necessarily my favorite. It works in some contexts, like especially in places like in The Wall, or in Dark Side of the Moon, where I think last time we talked about the sort of frantic or emotional elevation that his voice can get. In that kind of context, it really fits the material.
Right.
But I think that's him kind of leaning from a vocalist standpoint. I think that's him leaning into his weaknesses, that his voice isn't a really strong voice. And he leans into that, you know, in the same way that, you know, Tom Morello's not a shredder, but he's an incredible inventive guitarist. And I'm not going to take away that he's an incredible guitarist, but he's not an Eddie Van Halen.
like he's a little bit of a shredder.
He
but
can be. Yeah.
He's got his moments.
Yeah.
But he leans into the fact that he leans into those limitations and makes something inventive from them.
Right.
And I think Roger Waters shines when he leans into that and does something inventive vocally because of those limitations. The problem, my humble opinion, and you know, this is going to be kind of a shit on Roger Waters moment, I'm sorry, but his ego is so big, I don't know that he sees those as limitations. I think he thinks he needs to be front and center, period. And I think it's that ego that drove him to leave. And I don't think Pink Floyd suffered by his absence, but his solo stuff suffers by everybody else's absence in that. And I think Final Cut was the beginning of seeing that happen, because I think what you're talking about, Richard Wright, he was pissed at Richard Wright because Richard Wright wasn't coming with much material. And
Yeah, because it says Richard Wright left, like he's not on Final Cut.
he's not?
No.
Okay.
So it says he left in.
And I know David Gilmour didn't have any material to offer. He was showing up to do his thing, but I don't think there's one song on there that he wrote.
Yeah, like I'd have to go back and actually look at the credits and everything again, but I really like I don't consider Final Cut to be one of Pink Floyd's albums.
Yeah.
I consider it to be, here's some stuff that we had to release.
I mean, sometimes that shit happens because it's, you got to put a record out, and I think they put out a compilation right before it or something, like something dance songs or some shit.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I forgot all about that.
and like, there sometimes shit like that happens where it's only kind of one member who's motivated and who is
contractual obligations that need to be met. Or,
Oh, holy shit. You know who did the piano? I didn't realize this. Who did the piano on Final Cut?
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Pavarotti.
Close. Michael Kamen.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
Okay.
how about that? Like the first, like the conducting an orchestra with a rock band,
Yeah.
Michael Kamen.
The
Yeah.
pioneer of S&M fame.
Yep.
He was doing it years before that.
Queensryche. We're back to Queensryche.
It always comes
Oh.
back to Queensryche.
All roads lead to Queensryche.
Back to the Reich. Wait, no, I don't. No. Wait, hold on. Sorry. No.
Full circle.
R-Y, R-Y, C-H, R-Y, R-Y.
Fuck.
Warning. Sorry.
So, okay. So then Roger leaves. So, but I don't know. That is an interesting idea of that, that you think that he probably didn't see those as weaknesses and, maybe has this tremendous ego and whatever. But I don't know, man, after you like take the reins and you create something like The Wall, how the hell could you not? What kind of fucking monk would you have to be to not get a little full of yourself after?
Yeah.
After
I think that's a
Yeah.
fair
so,
statement.
and I feel like that's the thing. That's the really enigmatic thing about making art at this level. At that level where there's millions and millions and millions of dollars to be made, and that because no one really knows exactly how to get it right in a dependable, reproducible way. It just seems to happen sometimes. And like you were saying that, sometimes you need you need an idea guy and you need a no guy.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I think I think everybody in Pink Floyd serves that purpose. I really do. I've always got the feeling that they've had they were each an idea guy and each other's no guy.
I mean, that's how a healthy thing needs to work.
Right.
I mean, I remember when, like in All Severed, it was we had a dynamic that I sort of imagine is similar to like the Metallica dynamic, where it's like James and Lars are like always kind of fighting over things, and that was like me and Jeremy. But you were like the tiebreaker. Always. That was like your role. So if I felt this way and Jeremy felt this way, then it was going to fall on you to sort of, like you were always tasked with being like the diplomat and to sort of like find the way between those. And that's one way.
Yeah. It's like a more involved Kirk in that way.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, cause Kirk is kind of portrayed as not being terribly involved.
Right. He's very much shown that. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah. You weren't as uninvolved as Kirk has been portrayed.
Yeah, exactly.
Is not what I mean to imply. I mean like, Jeremy and I would be very, very passionate about the way that a section should be, or the way a riff should be, or the way something should be, and like almost to the point of fist fighting. And Robert would be like, I think that one works better. And we sort of understood as like the tacit agreement of that this is how this band functions. Okay. And if you were on the wrong side of that, then you would, okay.
You just sucked
let it
up
go.
and let it go. Okay.
If I wanted to do something and neither Jeremy nor Robert wanted to do it, then I'd let it go.
Majority rules.
And so
A true democracy. This is how we do it.
yeah, thank God we didn't have a fourth person. Thank God we couldn't give a basis.
Right. That was really the saving grace. Is we are an odd numbered band.
Right. Of three dudes who had a lot of mutual respect.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
No one had an outsized sort of power share
Yeah.
or whatever. And that's one way. That's one way a band can work.
Yeah.
But other bands can work with there being this one dude who has this singular vision, and everyone else's job is to just support and help that guy
Yep.
make the best decisions.
Jeff Tweedy and Wilco.
I wouldn't know. but
Probably Axl Rose and Slash in Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
I know fuck all nothing about how that band functions.
I will say
They don't function that well, I don't think.
I will say
They have lately.
Yeah, they've gotten back together.
Dude, Axel, I gained so much respect because like that's the thing. Oh, Axel cancels concerts. Fuck him. Blah 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 blah. But when he stepped up to like fill in for Brian Johnson on those AC/DC tour dates,
Whoa.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
dude, I have so much respect for Axel.
When he
Rose
just
now.
had to commit to a job and deliver.
But, well, like, because that is another level of I'm gonna learn a 2-hour set and go out there and deliver on someone else's music, and I'm going to, it's not gonna be the me show,
Right.
It's gotta.
He could take a back seat in a way.
And that's
interesting.
That is next fucking level kind of shit for someone who is on the level that he's at to be able to do. So gain a lot of respect.
Okay.
For me.
I do think that a band that does function like this, and not to bring it back, but Tool functions like this, where they're each an idea person, and I think to an extent they're each other's no person too.
I don't even know how I've gotten the impression of the last few years that the way that they function is that Tool is, Adam, Justin, and Danny.
That's kind of how it's evolved.
And then Maynard,
he just shows up and writes lyrics.
Is like
once
over
they're
there.
done with the music.
Yeah, I think for the last few years it's been different because they haven't put out an album before Fear Inoculum since 2006.
Right.
And that was because of a lot of fucked up reasons, like insurance and all kinds of crazy business nonsense.
Come on, guys, just get some goddamn Geico.
That's all. Save you 15 minutes on your anyway.
Save you 15 years on your
on
your album delays.
Literally.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the case at 10,000 Days, because I think that was a big Maynard album. Like like that's about his mom and
Okay.
That's a whole thing. But since then, definitely has become that where it's like they go into the studio and write the music, and then he brings lyrics after that. And it's that dynamic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That,
So
I guess we'll have to do some Tool episodes also.
it's all yes.
It's got to happen.
It's there. It's in the back pocket.
So I have a question.
It's in my front pocket. Sorry.
All right. So then Roger leaves Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Now.
Oh, that was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
We were talking about the sort of dynamic there, and that is what I think made them work so well for so long, was that balance. And yeah, obviously it's a balance between the four guys because they're all creative. They all have creative input, but ostensibly it's a balance between Waters and Gilmour.
Yes.
Because those are the people you see most predominantly.
Yeah.
And I feel like once they found that good balance, it worked well for a while. And obviously Roger Waters had his ideas that manifested in The Wall. And then, whatever happened after that, his ego got too big. Whatever exactly happened.
I mean, there's so many things that go into that just we have no idea. So like somebody like sort of if you look at because sometimes someone just needs to go make their solo record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But sometimes they can't do that. Like maybe the record contract they signed doesn't actually allow them to do that. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Or so this is fascinating to me. Okay, so Black Sabbath's career in the 80s is fucking insane because you have the first few albums with Dio. Okay, which that's like a different band. Almost. That's almost like not even Black Sabbath, right? And then like Geezer, Tony, and Bill were like hanging out with Ian Gillan from Deep Purple and like, yeah, let's do a fucking band. Let's do we'll do let's fucking do a band together with this guy. And they were trying to start a new band. And then they made him release it as the label
Sabbath.
made him release it as a Black Sabbath record.
I didn't know that.
And it is
Which album is that?
Born Again, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And it is an interesting record, but it is not a Black Sabbath record.
Is that the record with After Forever on it?
No.
No.
After Forever is
Was that Dio?
Way
After
before.
Forever is with Ozzy.
Was hot.
Yeah, maybe you're thinking of a different song.
Maybe so.
And then Tony Iommi started playing with like Glenn Hughes and was like, oh, I want to make a solo record with this guy. Makes what he is intending to be a Tony Iommi solo record. And they're like, no. We're going to release this as the Black Sabbath record.
What the fuck?
So you get like a string of Black Sabbath records that are not even intended to be Black Sabbath records in the
Right.
mid 80s.
Right.
So what you're saying is maybe Saint Anger was supposed to be a Lars solo record? And
If it was anybody's solo record, it was not Lars. I don't think.
it was a snare solo record. Sorry.
That was.
That goes back.
That was our first.
Our
that was
first argument.
Our very first.
Oh, really?
Our very first interaction, I think.
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
Like on Facebook. Was he, like friend of a friend kind of thing. Like he's shitting on Metallica and I'm like being a Metallica apologist. And then at one point I'm like, you just sound like you're an asshole. and Shae's like, I've been accused of that. And then I remember like Jaime was like, hey man, you want to come record some songs? This is months later. And he's like, hey, do you want to come record some songs? I was like, of course I will. And then I like get there and he might have like told me like in the yard, he's like, hey, my friend Shae's going to record us.
Jaime
Yeah, Jaime.
Guzman.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a link.
I was recording some of his.
Oh
he
my
was
God.
working on some solo stuff, and
Yeah, I had no idea.
So I show up and set up
Sweet.
drums in this fucking house. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that motherfucker Shae's here. And so like the first little bit of that recording session is like he and I like kind of sussing each other out a little bit, but us being very cordial because we both love our friend Jaime and we're
Right.
no, even if it turns out we actually fucking hate each other, neither one of us were gonna like compromise.
You're not gonna let it show for Jaime's sake.
Exactly.
we're professionals.
Yeah, we weren't
Yeah.
gonna let it compromise Jaime's music, right?
Yeah.
And then like I started like playing the drums and start doing my stuff and then we were like, oh, okay. You're all right. And then you're like, hey, have you heard the New Testament record? Gene Hoglan. I'm like, is that the one Gene Hoglan plays on? And then we're like fast friends. And
Yeah.
everything was okay after that.
It's all the Testament. Testament.
It's a
Testament
to your.
healed what Metallica tore apart.
It's a testament to your friendship.
It is a
You could-
testament.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did we get there? I forgot.
You were talking about
Solo
fucking
records.
Saint Anger.
Oh
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Street Anger.
But yeah. Sometimes a motherfucker just needs to make a solo record, and so I guess like that's so what I'm like sort of I'm speculating that like maybe there was all sorts of like factors for why
It wasn't just he got too big for his britches. It could be so many different things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so much shit that happens that we just will never know because we're not in the room.
One of the reasons I do say that is because they were very public about Roger and David were very public about their disdain for one another.
I see. Okay.
And they had both made comments that they would never play as Pink Floyd together again.
I see.
And it was such a huge deal when they finally did come back together at Live Aid 8.
Right.
And they actually shared that was literally the first time they'd shared a stage together since he left after Final Cut.
Right.
There was definitely a gigantic rift there.
I see.
Yeah.
And so what was it like? What was the attitude of the fan base after Roger left? Like with the anticipation that, okay, we're getting a Pink Floyd record that doesn't have Roger Waters on it. Like, was the fan base skeptical? Were they like, well, man, it's 3/4. I'll take what I could get. I'm really here for David anyway. Like, I don't know, man. What?
Well, it was a long time afterwards.
Yeah,
Was it like 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it was 87 was the next one.
Yeah, so it was a 4-year lapse, we'll say. What I do remember about that time is that, and I don't remember if this was the first solo, but I remember being in a pizza place and they were playing videos on the wall. And I totally unintentional, sorry.
This fucking guy. Anyway, that got
And
me
they
good.
played the video for Dogs of
Oh,
War.
shit.
It was right after Dogs of War was released as, I think, the first single on Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever seen that video, but it's kind of got this. Do you remember the old animated Lord of the Rings?
Oh, the Bakshi.
Yeah.
Is that how you say the name?
I think it's it. Yeah.
I don't think it was the same type of art, but it had that same like feel where they were animating over
It was like rotoscope.
figures. Yeah.
Yeah, there. That's
Okay.
That's the
And
name.
it had this really different feel from anything that had been Pink Floyd before. Visually and audibly. And I think that they really kind of said, okay, we used to be this thing. And we're still going to have these same elements, but we're something different right now.
Okay.
It's not that we're going to pretend to keep doing the same thing we did with Roger Waters, but we're still going to have the same elements. We're still going to have the same vibe, the same influences, but it's not going to be what you expect.
Okay. So it was just sort of a, and like they were very clear with what you should expect from this new iteration, this post Roger.
Are you familiar with the song Dogs of War?
No.
So I even think it's an interesting nod to...
Why didn't you include it then?
Because I was going to put the whole album on here. He even kind of has a Roger Waters vibe with his vocals. Because he's kind of got that elevated little anger...
Don't play it too close to the mic so we don't
Copyright strike. Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, he's kind of got
It
that...
has that bluesman swag to it.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
But it was definitely a different vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get further into the album, it does have this sort of reminiscence of a lot of their earlier influences, a lot of their earlier takes.
That was something I was going to say, because when it gets to Sorrow, I was like, nice. It's like totally of its time. I was like, but maybe not, because they played this way in 1975. And so it's like you listen to it and it's like, yeah, this sounds like a lot of the shit that people were making in the 80s. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Pink Floyd maybe just was doing this first. Like when we were listening, I forget what track it was, but it was like, oh, well, that's U2 and that's this and that's that. And so, you know what I mean? And
they created the things that became cliches later.
Yeah, like in that sonic palette that they were sort of reaching from on like Dark Side or Animals or whatever sort of.
Right.
I don't think that where they are in 1987 is really that far from where they were 10 years before, but everything else around them is very far from where it was.
Everything else is caught up, you're saying?
I guess in a way, like, but caught up in almost like a superficial way. Like, well, look, everyone's got to make records that sound as good sonically as Dark Side of the Moon, right? Or everyone's trying to use that David Gilmour guitar tone now, and whatnot. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of reaching.
I do think that one of the, there was a huge technology shift in record making and recording in that time frame. Everything was moving digital. Everything
already
was,
in the late 80s.
In the late 80s.
Okay.
That was one of the things that I saw it in the metal records that were being made. They started sounding cleaner. They started to sound colder. They had lacked that sort of analog warmth to them. And I feel like one of the other shifts that happened in the 80s was everybody started to try to utilize electronic drum kits.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
And I feel like that's where this record suffers. And I kind of alluded to this last week that I feel like the stuff that was done in that middle period had the best like records as a whole.
Sure.
But this era has some of my favorite songs as a whole. And because of that, I think this is actually my favorite record, even though I feel like it's one of the most dated because they were trying to use some of those elements that they lost that timelessness.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I fully agree. Like the thing that hit me the most, because Learning to Fly is one of those songs that will always make me feel weirdly nostalgic for like a period that I didn't really exist for,
Right.
in a weird way. It's one of those songs that really hits that note. I love that song.
Oh, yeah.
But this album, kind of the rest of the stuff, or the next two albums, I should say, really feel like 80s albums for reasons like that. For like,
Yeah.
like the drum sounds, just the overall production quality, the sort of just like everything feels very rounded off, and everything's got reverb on it.
Like too polished.
Almost too polished, yeah. It just sounds very, very of its time, whereas some of the stuff otherwise sounds a bit more timeless in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm right there with you on that one.
I really wish they would have stuck with their production value from the past.
I mean, it's so hard to sort of imagine being in that era because at this point, we've already seen the sort of return.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we've seen the cycle repeat as far as what the values in production. At that point, man, it seemed like everything was just deterministic and linear. Like, we're just going to keep progressing. And so it would have been like, at the time, if they would have made a really organic throwback 70s record, it might not have sold at all. They might not have been able to do absolutely anything with it.
Maybe so.
And it might have felt like just the most lazy, trotted out, tired bullshit, even though it would have a timeless sound to it, you know, because that's the thing. You don't know what sounds dated until 10 or 15 years later.
Yeah.
You know, you can't see it while you're in it.
Yeah, like I wonder what the headspace was for artists at that time, because like even in the 90s we can look back and say, oh, the 70s were like a golden era of this type of classic rock.
Mm-hmm.
But in the, when you get to 1981 or whatever, was it like, fuck man, we just had a decade of this shit. We want something new. Everybody wants something new.
Right.
Was that part of it? Was that a big part of it? It seems like it probably was, because it feels like everybody went that way.
Yeah.
And then you had metal albums, and that was like a totally different thing.
Right, yeah. And then, I mean, and metal is a counterculture thing anyway, so you can't like draw direct.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
But I mean, shit. Like the reason. So here's an example. The reason electronic drums sound dated is because at some point people stopped using electronic drums.
Right.
If we kept using them,
It would just sound like drums.
It would just sound like drums.
That's a fair point.
Like the reason that that some of the guitar and the drum sounds on like Dark Side of the Moon or whatever, or like that kind of delay or whatever he's using on Animal, whatever it was, the reason that doesn't sound dated is just because people kept doing it. Or the reason it doesn't sound dated
point.
in the same way.
Yeah.
Right. It's just because that's what determines if something tracks as being dated, is just if people stop doing it.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, people kind of came back, like you said, like they kind of came back around to doing it in a way, but it's for a nostalgic purpose.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
So.
Okay. Go ahead.
No. Do you have anything else on that one?
I don't really.
So,
you know, well, there is one thing.
Okay.
One other thing. So anyway, is there a clear line or a difference in Roger and David's lyrical style to you, as like what they write about or their delivery? I know there's a difference in their vocals and their vocal delivery, but as far as their songwriting, there's, you know, like what the subjects they write about.
So I don't know that I can say this definitively.
Mm-hmm.
But my impression has always been that Roger Waters usually writes from an introspective perspective, and David Gilmour usually writes from a critical perspective, like political and that kind of thing.
That sounds right. Okay.
Yeah, that seems kind of correct. Like David Gilmour seems to write from more of a metaphorical perspective also, whereas Roger Waters is very much like he can only write from his perspective in a way.
Yeah.
Like yeah, introspective is a way to say it, but like also typically more first person.
Yes.
Oh, well, I don't want to say that. That's a bad way to say it, but
I think I understand what you're saying though, because even if he's not writing in first person, and even if he is using metaphor, he is still describing something very personal. He's describing an emotion.
yeah, because like learning to fly is all from somebody's perspective, but it's like how to say that, like it's not how I'm feeling. It's like what's happening to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, and like a lot of lyrics of Rogers seem like they're like he's dealing with his trauma. He's dealing with, the shit he went through, his relationship with his dad, all this sort of stuff, and he's using it he's doing it through metaphor and through all these types of things. But he's still,
it feels very direct.
Yeah.
In a way that to me the Gilmour stuff later on does not. It feels very like abstract. It feels more like removed a bit. In a way.
Cool. But yeah, I didn't have a lot to say on these two. Other than what I've already kind of alluded to.
I will say that I think one of the reasons that I do love this era of Pink Floyd, and specifically this record, that even though it sonically sounds dated, that lyrically it's timeless to me. I remember in the summer of 2020, George Floyd, all the demonstrations, stuff going on with the school board, all the stuff going on in Baytown in my own life. And there would be times when I would listen to On the Turning Away and just cry. It felt so relevant. Just these lyrics on the turning away from the pale and downtrodden, and the words they say which we won't understand. Don't accept that what's happening is just a case of others suffering, or you'll find that you're joining in the turning away. It's a sin that somehow light is changing to shadow and casting its shroud over all we have known, and aware how the ranks have grown, driven on by a heart of stone, we could find that we're all alone in the dream of the proud. On the wings of the night, and the daytime is stirring, where the speechless unite in a silent accord, using words you will find are strange, mesmerized as they light the flame, feel a new wind of change on the wings of the night. No more turning away from the weak and the weary. No more turning away from the coldness inside. Just a world that we all must share. It's not enough to stand and stare. Is it only a dream that there'll be no more turning away? Man, that song every single time.
Well, that to me makes that song absolutely not of the 80s, because I don't know if there's any song that had that much sort of emotional and philosophical weight behind it.
Yeah.
That was released during that period of the 80s, in the late 80s,
And so much of his lyrics to me hit me like that. I mean, it's just he's a powerful songwriter, and this is still one of my favorite albums to listen to from start to finish. Skip nothing. Nice. Just
very
set
cool.
it and go.
Very cool. And then the next one is The Division Bell.
Yeah. So I have to start this with a story.
Okay.
Because this came out when I was in college.
It was 94.
Yeah, it was my last year in college. I know that makes me old. And
what? No. What? No. Come on.
And I had I'll never forget this. This is simultaneously one of the best adult decisions I've ever made, and one of the worst musician decisions I've ever made. I had an opportunity to go see them on this tour in Dallas, Texas. bought a ticket. Even in 1984, the ticket was $84.50.
Damn.
Making your money, David. Making your money,
I
David.
bought the ticket. The day of the concert came, and I realized I had a Spanish final the next day. And I knew that if I went to Dallas, I was going to fail that Spanish final. And it was my last. It was the second semester, because I think it was like in April or March. And it was like I was nearing the end, and if I flunked this final, I was not going to graduate, and I had to graduate.
What a tough decision.
Poor K.
Yeah, exactly. And so I gave the ticket to a friend.
Well, at least you
And,
did that. Did
I
they
did
go?
not go, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I did not go, and I've regretted it because I still don't know Spanish. It didn't help me.
But you did graduate.
But I did graduate.
So you did. Your calculus rang true
Yeah,
that you made.
it worked, but man, what a regret.
I have some of those.
And so now I've never seen them, and I never will.
Yeah.
Like, I always feel really thankful when I see people say, like, man, I wish I'd seen Pantera, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Glad I saw him multiple times.
Yep.
So,
You know who I did see?
Good shit.
Def Leppard.
Are you gonna go see them with a Motley Crue?
No, I've
and
already
Poison?
I even when I went to go see them, I said to the guys that I went with, the only reason I'm going is so that one day I can look back and say, well, yeah, I saw those guys.
I have no hate for Def Leppard.
This
I
was
can
the first tour with Vivian Campbell right after he joined.
that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was like
it was the
85?
Let's Get Rocked tour.
Is that like 85?
Adrenalize.
86 or
No,
something?
that was 92, 93.
Wait a minute. I thought he was in the band before then.
No, because he replaced Steve Clark. Steve Clark died after Hysteria, and they didn't do anything until Adrenalize, which came out in probably 92 or 93.
Wow.
Maybe 91.
Hold on.
That was the worst song. Let's get.
Okay,
right.
I think I'm. What is the other guitarist's name in Def Leppard?
Paul Clark.
Okay, maybe I'm getting confused on something.
No, Steve Clark, Paul Collins, Peter Collins, Phil Collins, something Collins.
Okay, yeah. It says his first record with Def Leppard was in 93. Yeah, okay, so this is the guy that did all the Dio records.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, I just didn't realize he was with
Yeah.
Dio that long.
Yeah, he was.
I thought he only did like.
He's
Holy
also the guy
Diver.
that clocked Glenn Danzig in one punch, dropped him.
I think that's happened to Danzig more than once.
Yeah.
Phil Collins. That's
Phil
who I'm,
Collins.
That's who I'm.
I told
thinking
you I
of.
thought it was Phil Collins.
Yeah, Phil Collins, of course.
Yeah.
No, that's who I have. Like he's like, I'm 78, but I got a six pack, so like that, or whatever he's doing these days. Okay, cool. So you weren't able to see them on the Division Bell tour, but you love the record, I'm sure, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. This when he gets to High Hopes,
Oh.
I was like, I love this grass is greener hook. I was like, this is great.
The video is just stunning.
Mm.
You should check out
I've
the
never
video.
seen it.
Oh man, it is visually what that era of Pink Floyd sounds like.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I didn't have a lot. I enjoyed it. It's cool. So, but I really like this song. This is probably,
High Hopes.
yeah. I think this was maybe my favorite track. Like it's up there with my favorites on this playlist, for sure.
It's a great song,
So,
and it's the album closer. So it's just kind of like this fantastic like punctuation.
Gotcha.
The only other tracks I knew off of this album, because I just haven't really listened to the post Water stuff all that much.
Yeah. Do you have any type of relationship with the post-water stuff?
Not nearly as much as the pre-water or the
Dark side.
last time stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Anything before this, really. But I know Marooned is a great track. It's an instrumental. It's one of my favorites. And then Keep Talking, obviously, is I think it got a lot of radio play, and that's another one that they revisited later with Talking Hawking.
Yeah.
With Stephen Hawking's voiceover. Well, they did it back in '94 as well.
No. I'm thinking to myself because I didn't connect that with the song title. Like I didn't connect what I was hearing with the song title. So
Okay.
I just now clicked for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
You didn't recognize his voice?
I did. I was like, I know this is Eddie. This could be Eddiewood's voice, but that does sound like the shit that he would say at seminars.
Yeah.
Also that, yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's some great stuff. I mean, I guess the thing for me about these last couple albums is the solo Gilmore stuff just doesn't work nearly as well for me as the.
And you know what? I don't get into the Gilmore solo records. I've tried. And I know that was kind of what you were saying.
And to say solo Gilmore is a gross misrepresentation of who all is making music here.
And to me, it's at least for me, it's a testament to the input of the others, because I don't get into the David Gilmour records.
the editing power of Richard Wright and Nick Mason.
Yeah.
Maybe
Their
so.
contributions.
Yeah.
Power of no.
Yeah. Everybody needs their no guy.
Like
At this point, David had two of them.
to only one, yeah. I realize after listening to all this stuff on both these playlists, I realize how much I really enjoy the dichotomy of their two vocal styles together, because there's as much as I even love some of these songs on the later stuff, like the sort of breathy Gilmore spoken vocals that is kind of like, okay, you're doing this again. I'm like, I love those songs, but it's just more of that. It's just I like the change. The change up really helps me a lot, I guess, is what I'm saying. So.
That makes sense. And like, but you're really connecting to those lyrics.
Yeah.
And
The lyrics are
whatnot.
great, yeah.
So that you don't need that variation in timbre
Right.
to kind of keep you engaged
Right.
as much.
Right.
You know, that makes sense.
I'm like balled up in the fetal position in the quarter, listening to the lyrics. So
You're like, I don't even taint my lyrical experience with the music. I just read them.
Just read Genius.
And
and
it is
guitar
not-
tone, lyrics and guitar tone.
Yeah, it's not. I turn on a sine wave, a pure ooh, and it's not until I have them completely memorized that I listen to the record.
Yeah.
Were they? Do you know if they were doing? When was Pulse? Was Pulse after?
Pulse is after Division Bell. Pulse came out in the mid 2000s.
No, it can't be that late. No.
Mm-hmm. My battery just ran out on that damn light just a couple of years ago. Had a little light.
No,
in the
95.
spine.
95.
Oh, it was 95?
Yeah, because I remember seeing it.
That must have been the Division Bell tour.
It must have been. I guess that makes sense. Because that was their big live album, and it like there's concert. I think there's a video to go along
Yeah,
with
that
it,
DVD.
right? And they have the giant like,
orb
circular thing above the
yeah.
stage. It was a whole thing at the time. Because I guess from like The Wall kind of onward, they became known for like their ostentatious touring shit.
Right.
Yeah.
The Big Pig, Animals. So it was before The Wall then, and then The Wall, and then the crazy light rig that they had for this tour.
Right. So that's something that they kept up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that. And so, do you know, like when they would play live, like they still played the Roger era stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So there wasn't any kind of like
I-
dumb bullshit there.
Roger still wanted his royalties.
Yeah. So
Well,
for
he
all-
wouldn't get it from them playing live. You'd only get it from them selling those records.
Yeah, I guess so. But for a long time, there were sort of fights between I think the two parties as to who owned what because
Right.
because Roger Waters would also go out and play Pink Floyd songs
Yeah.
on tour, on his solo stuff, but they did that stuff for years as well.
Yeah. Though you just have to like where it can get sticky legally is if you are advertising it like a misrepresentation in advertising, right? Like if he's not part of the Pink Floyd brand, but it could be argued that he is marketing it as if you are coming to see Pink Floyd or something affiliated with Pink Floyd, that's when you have a legal case against it.
Right.
You know, like again, to bring it back to live. So Ed Kowalczyk's first solo record was called Alive. And it was in this almost the same exact font as Live's logo. So
Interesting.
so that's grounds for them to sue him, you know, and them to say, you know what I mean?
But
And
alive is a different word.
well, that coupled with other things and,
Oh, okay.
and how he was marketing it,
Oh, wow.
you know what I mean? And how he was marketing his shows and whatnot, things like that. So
Yeah, I wonder what the agreement or
I guess like what I'm saying, what I'm trying to articulate is that there's no like legal instrument to keep, because I mean, like you were saying, like Jerry Cantrell played half a Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
But he wasn't selling. He wasn't like
he was saying Pink Floyd is playing Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't say like come see Pink Floyd open up for Metallica.
You know what really complicated this for Queensryche was
Yes.
when Jeff Tate left and started touring Operation Mindcrime. And so now,
Same thing.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
So because that was like the wall
Right, and didn't he like call it like Jeff Tate's Queensryche or some shit?
that for a while, and then he got busted, and now his band is literally called Mindcrime.
Oh,
Right,
boy.
and that's smart. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
You know, you like, you know, because I think that's what Roger Waters, The Wall.
exactly.
shit like that.
That was what he built it as after a certain point. Yeah.
Right.
So, I guess that worked.
Cool, interesting.
Rogers Wall.
Roger Wall.
Rogers Waters.
It's so hard for me to not say Walters.
Right.
And I guess this is
Roger
that.
Walters.
Yeah, Roger. I mean, you know, I guess that makes sense.
He could have called it Pink, like Floyd's Pink.
He could have done that, but then no one would have come. Unfortunately.
one time, and then he's as bankrupt as Sid Barrett.
Damn.
Oh.
Oh, poor. Oh.
Okay, do you want to talk about this last record now?
For me, I've always felt like this was, coming full circle back to Umaguma.
Endless River.
Kinda,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like without as much of the avant-garde influence, but still with those sort of movements and the little sweets.
The spirit of it.
Yeah.
The sort of
With the
construction of
maturity
it,
that
yeah.
they had all gained along the way.
Right.
And again, kind of going from, what was it, Clouds into Dark Side of the Moon and saying, okay, let's simplify, but let's kind of keep this idea. I feel like that's what Endless River is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
When I read a little bit about the background of the record, it became after I'd listened to it the first time, but when I read a little bit about it before listening the second time, these songs became very moving to me because it was made after Richard had died.
Right.
And then like, you know, the album cover, the title, and this was intentionally like, this is going to be the last
is
Pink
the
This was
Floyd.
made as a send off.
Right. And so it's like simultaneously sort of an encapsulation and a summary and a eulogy, not just for Richard,
But for the band.
for the band
the band,
itself.
yeah.
And I found that really, really moving.
And for their
Cool.
journey,
Yes.
which
Yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah.
again, kind of an illusion in the title.
Right. And I mean, in the album cover, it's like that could be Richard Wright.
Right.
Like we're sending our friend off.
It could be Pink.
Or it's the band itself, you know? And I found that really, really moving, and it
Cool.
made these a lot more endearing.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That record is one of those that I love, similar to how I utilize Cigarro often, is that if I've got a lot of work I'm doing, but I want something to just kind of keep me centered and keep me going, but keep me inspired at the same time, I'll throw this on, and just put it on repeat all day long.
Because it's worth noting that this entire album is instrumental except for 2 tracks.
Yeah.
Right.
Just Talkin' Hawkin', which is Stephen Hawking's voiceover, and then Louder Than Words, which is just vocals from David Gilmour.
Yeah.
And most of this, I think, is from the Division Bell sessions,
I think, yeah. I
if
think
not
you're
all
right.
of it. So it's a lot of stuff that Richard Wright played on.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Like his voice is actually in
Yes.
the record. Yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe some stuff they recorded later on, but I think the majority of it's from way back then. But it was good enough to compile together and put out as a Pink Floyd album. And
Yeah.
Right.
it still has that vibe. It's interesting because it has that sort of peak Floyd vibe, as it were. But like with today's production, because it came out in 2014.
Yeah.
So with like modern production values, and it sounds fucking great.
Yeah.
That was my Christmas, or no, Father's Day gift for my kids that year. Nice. Cool.
Nice. Yeah, I'm that's one of the ones that I was like, okay, maybe I'll go back and check out the rest of this, for sure. So, because even just looking at the rest of the song titles, it seemed clear to me that it's, like Things Left Unsaid or shit like that. And it's like, this is the history of the whole band here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the last. I mean, Gilmour said at the time, like, this is the last Pink Floyd thing that's going to happen, or Pink Floyd album that's going to come out.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah,
You ready for the salty bits?
Are you all ready for the salty bits?
oh hell yeah, let's go.
Bring it.
Okay. So these are not necessarily the things that I would say now.
They're not the things you settled on. Just
Yeah.
the initial.
These are sort of initial
Okay.
emotional responses that I had.
Wait. My special drink.
So
I love these things,
What
man.
is
What is that?
Abai Bubbles. This is
Blackberry.
Bogota blackberry and lime. It's my
like
favorite drink in the
the
world.
flavor of if someone yelled blackberry in the room next to you.
What is it fucking from?
I don't know.
It's some comedian.
Yeah.
About flavored water. Yeah.
Okay, this is the hot take section.
Richard, hot takes. Hot takes.
Yeah.
Do.
This is the
extra production
largest
right there.
amount of obtuse, unenjoyable music I've absorbed in the least amount of time.
Concentrated.
Like this is 3 hours of unapproachable, terrible stuff that I just force fed. Not how I feel now, but after that first listen, I was like, oh my god.
It isn't not that. Also,
Yeah.
as someone who loves some of the shit, like, it isn't not that.
A lot of this is somehow the worst of all worlds. It's too damn dramatic and distracting for me to get the thing I get from jammy or ambient music. It's not organic enough for me to get what I get out of jazz. And it's not groovy or intricate enough for me to get what I get out of like funk music and stuff. I can't say that, whatever. And it's so meandering and spacey that it barely tracks as a song. Because even, you could take a songwriter whose lyrics or whatever, might not be my cup of tea, like a Taylor Swift or something like that,
Sure.
just not my vibe. But it's like, at least it's a goddamn song. At least it's about something. At least there's a beginning and a middle and an end. At least there's lyrics. At least I know what they're talking about. It goes down easy,
Nice.
So again, not necessarily what I would say,
Right.
but in my like emotional anger, and so
Why aren't they doing something I recognize?
kinda. I mean, sure, yeah. But again,
I can understand that, though.
like I said at the beginning, a lot of this state I was in was because of that just all those, like, how many hard turns can a
Right.
person be asked to take in an hour and a half,
Right.
But it is interesting to consider, like, why Pink Floyd is not, like, why none of this tracks is being jam band or jammy, you know what I mean?
They were a big influence on Fish, actually.
And I
I'm
really
kidding.
like. Okay, I thought you were serious, because I could see that, but I really like Fish, and I can because there's like a sort of there's a steady state kind of thing going on with that style of music, You know, like there's like, and there's like a consistent groove, there's a consistent pocket, and the intricacy is there when you look deeper. But on the surface, you can just kind of tune out. Da 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 da. All this is so goddamn dramatic, you know, that you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't function how like a lot of the video game music that you showed me does as well, where that kind of can facilitate other things.
Sure.
You can't really do anything else
No, you're right.
while
Like,
listening to this.
yeah, this isn't for me. This isn't something that I. No Pink Floyd is like something that I put on and do other stuff. It's like something I'm ready to listen to some Pink Floyd right now, and then that's what I do.
Right, right. And I'm sure that was part of my initial problem on the first listen too, is I was doing other shit, and it was like, oh my God.
Just a quick, whatever. Quick fish tangent. I've never been into. Are you into fish?
No.
What? Oh fuck no.
I didn't like really flip that leaf over.
I didn't mean to
until-
say that out loud that way.
I used to always shit on them just because the people that I knew that liked them were shitting on Pantera, and I was like, well, clearly you're an idiot.
I mean, valid.
But no, I've
not
been poking around in their stuff the past week or so, and I'm like, oh God, I actually really like this.
Okay, I'd be interested to try it out because that was one of those bands. Like, again, like of all the bands that I heard of through like Guitar World and shit. Like
Oh,
Trey
yeah,
Anastasio
sure.
was always on those lists of like
I guess so,
such
yeah.
an interesting, cool, you know, intricate one of those solos on the top list of solos or whatever the fuck, you know. But one of those guys I always heard about. Fish was always one of those bands you
I
hear about.
see.
And so I tried listening to them, and I was like, I don't need this.
There's a really good documentary about him on Amazon Prime right
okay.
now. And check that out if you know, because it's really cool because it just kind of it's like a little window into sort of a brief time period of his life, and it's just you know, and so you're just. There's like not like some like here's the narrative and the story of the redemption of Trey and blah 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 blah, and it's interesting because they film him like he's just like a regular dude, and like the scenes of him playing like Madison Square Garden in front of however many whatever thousand people
Right.
are treated the same way like someone like clocking in at work,
Yeah.
like that just happens to be his job.
He
It
kind of
is
just looks like
almost-
a regular dude when he's
you
playing.
know?
Like just yeah.
so, but
Okay. Anyway, fish
all right.
tangent over.
All right, this is 3 hours of intros. All hat, no cattle. All intro, no song.
What?
Like this phrase. Have you heard the phrase? All hat,
No.
no cattle.
Never heard this phrase.
Oh,
I'm familiar. My grandmother used to use the phrase drugstore cowboy, but same idea.
yeah. Like
Okay,
Like-
I guess I've never known
Like
what
somebody
that
that likes to
means.
dress like a cowboy, but they're not really a cowboy.
Okay, where does the drugstore come into it?
Like somebody that buys their outfit at a drugstore.
At a drugstore. Okay. Okay. Proceed.
when it got to High Hope, I was like, oh, this is the first actual song I've heard in an hour and a half. And it's the first hook on the whole goddamn playlist.
That might be fair. Actually.
is green.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, hook! We found it! He put one in here! One! Thank you! And then when it got to sort of this other stuff, I was like, oh, like it got to the last record. I was like, oh, Endless River. I was like, oh, no wonder you like Dream Theater. Dream Theater is Gilmore Floyd with actual musical ideas.
Oh.
Conversely, Gilmore Floyd is Dream Theater with a heart. I don't know which of those is true.
That might both be true.
They might both be true. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is kind of funny too because this says like how burned out I was by the time it got to the end of this. I was like side 2 part whatever skins. Cool drum thing, I guess.
God. It's called
Nice.
Skins.
I was like so done. I was like whatever. You know, but then also it's great. It's really cool to hear the drums used in that texture. Also, so many guitar solos, vomit emoji.
I mean,
I think
that's what you're gonna
That's
get.
like asking the Edge to not do the chingy 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 thing.
yeah. So I think those are those are my hot takes.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
That's good. I was waiting for you to be like shark sandwich. It's just like a shit sandwich.
What?
Shark sandwich. You said.
Shark.
Oh, you did say shark.
Yeah.
What?
It's a Spinal Tap reference where they're doing all the album
Oh.
reviews, and they get to like the 2-word review for Shark Sandwich was just shit sandwich. He was like, "That's not real, is it? You can't print that." No, sorry.
I haven't seen Spinal Tap in a long time.
Same. Same. I haven't seen it in a minute.
I feel like that joke just fell flat.
Somebody was laughing out there.
Somebody. If
yeah.
it makes the cut. Maybe Richard is gonna.
Yeah, that's what
end
I
it
do.
right
That's what I do.
before-
I go back and I cut out. I don't just cut out where things weren't funny. I cut out any time that anyone except me is funny.
Right, exactly.
Wow, this is gonna be a short podcast episode.
Hey, oh,
zing.
Makes my job easier when they're shorter.
Fair.
Oh, all those old jokes.
But yeah, all in all, I once I understood the terrain and I was like, okay, that's what this is. This is how I need to approach it.
Yeah.
Then it was really enjoyable and
That's really cool to hear. I mean, it really is. Not that I would diminish your ability to enjoy different music, because I know
Sure.
that you have that. But I also know how much you like to shit on things. And that's one of the things I appreciate about you. But
I just shit on things that you like.
I know.
Just because I
and
like
you
how
knew
you
how
react
much I
to
love
it.
Pink Floyd. But I mean, I feel like going through their catalog is a journey.
Oh yeah, I challenge anyone to sort of, look at their story and not have just, the utmost respect
Yeah.
for.
You can not appreciate their music.
or it can just like not be your thing, or
Right,
or it's
yeah.
like, oh well, this doesn't hit me the way that it hits other people. But I don't know how you can not sort of almost just be in awe of their output and their ambition and what
Yeah.
they accomplished sonically.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can totally understand someone not liking any of their music.
Yeah.
Because it asks a certain amount from you to, like you said, like sort of once you understand, like, or you have some sort of a coherent viewpoint of like where they're coming from, what they're trying to do, then
Right.
it makes some more sense. But if you just come to this as you just like stumble across some of their shit or whatever, and it's just
Right.
this long meandering, because it's long and meandering. I love that about it, but that's what it is. And you can totally be like, just what even are you doing here? Where's the song? That's why I
Right.
get it. Yeah.
Right. And I imagine that if I was to go and sit with some of these records and the record itself, it's like, oh, well, that's clearly that's clearly now in my top 20 favorite records of all time. I feel like 5 of these have the potential to be that,
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Interesting.
Cool.
Excellent.
Anything else?
That's all I got, sir.
All right. I don't know how to end a podcast when it's not after midnight.
Yeah,
It
true.
feels weird.
I mean, just
I
sit
mean,
here- sit
you
here
guys
for
can
another
just sit
7
here and
hours.
talk until then. That's cool. Just keep recording.
Yeah. Yeah. Just leave silence.
Come back at 12:01.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
It's an artistic choice.
Yeah.
It's long and meandering.
So, all right. Appreciate you. Adios.
Like I'm
Oh,
some
like
literature.
like British literature and
Yeah.
things like that.
And your time will come.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about Ronnie James Dio. He screams about magic and dragons.
Which we all know the Brits never wrote about, so it's off limits
Right.
for Bruce Britton.
Except for that Tolkien fucker.
Nobody would write songs about
No one.
that shit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Except Robert Plant. And
I feel like oh god, I wish I had that queued up. No, I was trying to think of a pun using for the band Blind Guardian, who've made their entire career off of writing songs about Tolkien.
Okay.
Like the entire career. They
right? Not just like an album here and there, but that's like their shtick.
yeah, I don't think they've
More or
written
less.
a non-Tolkien related song.
Wow.
Like not a one.
And they've been going for a long time.
So
too.
are they like the musical equivalent of like Leslie Nielsen or
I don't know what Leslie Nielsen is.
he's
the actor?
yeah, he like makes all these spoof movies about
Naked
other
Gun.
movies. and-
Oh,
Airplane.
So sorry. I had to pull up a different
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 file.
Rolodex.
yeah,
there.
Yes.
different file, like a whole different cabinet. My like
Oh,
Naked
shit.
Gun, you know, like no. I was like, are you fucking up Liam Neeson's name? And then I was like, wait a minute, Take It. I guess
this
Take
is
It
like
is a
the-
spoof.
The TV radio guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the TV rating guy, Nielsen. Just kidding.
Oh, I see. And then first I was like, wait a minute, is there? Because there's like some random documentary about a guy named like Harry Nielsen. or-
Yes.
you know, like some like Greenwich Village folk artist or something like that. And I was like, is
Oh,
that what
yeah.
Shae's talking about? I have no idea. So what do you got over there, Robert? What you got for me?
I think you've had a old fashioned before.
Okay.
Got you a French press, coffee porter,
Mm.
I used to
have
love old fashions.
a commitment imperial stout,
Oh
and
boy.
a sort of Japanese rice beer.
All of that sounds amazing.
It's all amazing,
Uh,
in case you were wondering. But yeah, whatever.
Jesus.
Whatever you don't drink, I'll just leave here for next time.
Oh my God.
And I could-
Well,
I didn't know if I would feel like drinking something, but I kind of do now.
Jesus. I'm. Can you hit record on those cameras over there, buddy? By the way.
Other one.
No, he was right.
Nope.
Was he?